Hey everybody, welcome to the finals for the July tournament for the UD6. I'm with Medical. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. As always, we're into the finals of the July tournament, and we've got it down to 4 players, and it's going to be good. They're pretty evenly matched, definitely between Devil Tifa and Mel West, just 9 points apart on the leaderboard. Brother Main, no slouch, is going to be right there with them. And Skunk Off is probably the role of the underdog today, but has a couple games that he really excels at, a couple ones where he really doesn't that are going to be sort of pitfalls for him. And as we saw last weekend, though, that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. Things can get pretty crazy when in this race environment. Yeah, things got. We saw some pretty not great times from some players, and then some players did better than normal. And we saw Skunkoff actually tying Mel West with 818 points. So he can compete with the best today. It's not over. I mean, it hasn't begun literally, but it's anyone's game. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. Today we are doing the first out of 10 games, and tomorrow at the same time, 11 a.m. EDT, we are doing the 5 other game for the UD. So it's going to be like one giant tourney, consisting of running all the 10 games and all the players of their strengths and weaknesses. And as you said, Skunkoff is totally the underdog today, but he's completely blew out the competition on Trials 2 in particular in the first tournament, and Cuphead on the second one. It is a player that has big strengths and huge weaknesses. Today it's going to be Metal Slug. It's right in the middle of the day. If he passes Metal Slug, he's going to look very, very good for 2 days ranking. And for tomorrow, it's going to be Shovel Knight, and that's the 10th game. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he's doing compared to Devil Tifa and Mel West. Obviously, they are our best players so far in the season, and probably everybody thinks they're going to qualify. If you look here where we are in the final on that first like purple arrow to qualify to the grand finals, and the top 2 is just going to be the 2 players that qualify today are going to be so relaxed and less stressed compared to the other. They have to go through all the selection all over again, either during August or September, and it's going to be like a good relief and give them so much more time to work differently, not having to work so much on races strats, and rather go for grinding and maybe come back to race strats way later, just maybe for the 13th and 14th of October, where the top 8 players are going to compete for to be on the top 4 for the ultimate final. And yeah, it's today is going to be an interesting day. We are going to follow all the 4 runners all the time, and yeah, it's going to be a long and huge tournament, probably one of the best one we ever set up so far for the UD6.
I have to agree. We're going to get a look at the 10 games. We're only going to be doing 5 today. This is a pretty long, grueling thing, the Ultimate Decathlon. Part of what you were saying ties into that 2 players are going to qualify, and they're qualified for the next couple months, and the other players are going to have to come back for one of the other tournaments and try to qualify again, and that can kind of wear you down. So with that in mind, we are splitting up these 10 games into 2 days. This is day 1. We're going to be doing these first 5 games. The End Is Nigh, A Story About My Uncle, Metal Slug, Trials 2, and Castlevania Area of Sorrow. So those are our 5 in a row, and we're going to start with The End Is Nigh.
So, for you, what's the game runners have to look for? Like, what's the most difficult game for today?
I think A Story About My Uncle really got some people yesterday. It's the kind of thing where it's likely that one small mistake can cause you to die and reset, and I find that can really throw people off. It's a game where you kind of get into a flow of things, and once you get out of that flow, sometimes you can get stuck for quite a while trying to find it again. So that's what, in terms of like big things that can happen. A story about my uncle, and of course, disaster can strike in Aria of Sorrow. Those manipulations are incredibly tricky, and a missed one means you're, resetting back to the menu, doing all these things. Especially the longer ones, like Creaking Skull. We saw, I think it was Devil Tifa miss the Creaking Skull manipulation and was playing from almost 2 minutes behind right off the bat. Those kinds of mistakes can be really big. So those are my two picks as the ones to really watch out for.
Yeah, on Skunkov player's card, we can see on A Story About My Uncle, the top arrow, his personal best is 30:15, but the best time he put out on a race so far is 32. That's about a 20 points difference, which is kind of a lot at that time of the competition. When you want to be top 2 out of 4, each point is going to count a lot. Melwest and Skunkov tied last week on the semifinals, and it's actually very close, and if you can manage to save 20 seconds, that's 3 extra points in the bag. So definitely a story about my uncle. The end is nice, probably Skunkov's biggest weakness. We can see on the player card that he is at 25 minutes PB. He almost tied that on the race standings, but it's still pretty difficult. And yeah, Malwest illustrates that also pretty well. The story about my uncle, you can see the huge difference between that 28:51 and in PB and 34:49 in race time, best race time so far. So I definitely agree. And Castlevania Eye of Sorrow, although very difficult because very long and always all those RNG manips, the players we got today are fairly consistent at the game, I'd say, and yeah, they're overall pretty good at Eye of Sorrow. Maybe Brothermain is the best for that game today, and I'm not sure where it's going to, what game is going to really the players are going to take a lead or not. It was really later on both tournaments we did, the playoffs and the semifinals, that one runner to the lead, and it got very, very close between Skunkov, Melwest, Devil Tifa and Brothermain last week. So definitely is going to be a tough match for all those 4 players, and I hope they de-rusted very well the past week.
Last player, Devil Tifa, has got most of these bars filled up on this player card. The biggest disparity we can see here is Spectra Ball. This is partially because Devil Tifa, I think, has only really had one chance to do a Spectra Ball race time since they put in a ton of work and got the top time, indeed the world record for Spectra Ball. So the grind, as you can see, way off the charts at 238 points. In the race, not quite matching up to that potential. Only had the one chance last weekend where it really didn't go well. It was it might have been the 1022 here, I'm not sure, but it was a big slide in points.
It was a 1250 actually, quite far from
okay
that.
Wow, yeah, okay, much worse. So yeah, if Spectra Ball is not today, but that would have been another one of my picks for where, getting in the flow, getting lost, and being unable to find it for a couple minutes. So, even if it's not that game, though, Devil Tifa is going to be hoping to avoid that sort of pattern that caught him in not just one, but multiple games last weekend. Is very good at recovering from those things, but would rather not have to put that skill to use, would rather just come out swinging and dominate the whole way. Kind of like Brothermain did last weekend. It was, I think, first or second in all 5 games. A very dominating performance. Finished like 100 points above second. Was looking really fantastic. The 5 games yesterday were kind of playing to Brothermain's strengths, though. So over the course of all 10, we'll see if he can maintain that dominating performance.
Yeah, that's a very good point you brought up because all the players of like preferences, obviously, and like Brother Main, we can see here, is very good at Castlevania, at D&D's Night, at Spectrable, but like we want the players to be able to compete on all 10 games, and obviously you will have some strengths and weaknesses, and it can, like, the order can be a huge deal for some runners. Like, I'm very scared from Mel West because a story about my uncle definitely got him last week. It was very tough for him, and you know, the game's kinda unfair-ish sometimes, and it's if you lose the flow of like the grappling and the movement, it can be very tough to get back into it. And I do hope they like will have better luck with the game. But we are starting with the Andy's Night. Just a quick recap for those who are new here for the rules. The players have a set time to beat the game. The category for the Andy's Night, it's 30 minutes. So if you don't beat the game in less than 30 minutes, you're out. You have 0, you score 0 for that game, a specific game. If you do beat the game between under 30 minutes, you will be awarded points. And for the Andy's Night, it goes for 1 point each 6 seconds. So if you are 6 seconds ahead of someone, you will be 1 point ahead at the end. The point system is here to to compensate for the time difference between some games, so like a longer game does not weigh too much more than a shorter game. But here we are started, and the Andy's Night is a cool start, I'd say, for this Decathlon, because it's a simple enough platformer. You just have like a jump button and movement buttons, and that's pretty much it, with the fast fall option that we'll see the runners use quite a lot, and it makes for some very smooth and nice looking movement.
Yeah, some of the other games, you know, Area of Sorrow, you don't start with your double jump or your backdasher. So there's kind of there's mechanics that are gonna come into play later on in the run, and that's the case for many of the games, but not this one. You know, you've got your jump, you've got your movement basically, and that's it. So as soon as it starts, you're already doing everything the game has to offer, pretty much. We got Mel West just a little bit out in front in these early stages, and this comes just through really small optimizations. Mel West has the best time of the bunch in this game on the leaderboard, and is kind of showing it here today through this early play, though it is certainly... you know, this is not indicative of, probably not indicative of the pattern of the entire race, because this first section is pretty easy, and you'll see over time that you can get some pretty big swings in this game as someone gets caught up on a stage, dies, has to retry a couple times, and those time differences tend to make up more than the person who's able to, you know, shave off a couple frames here and there as they grab ledges sooner, or cut their jumps just, you know, short enough, and these kinds of things. So Mel West excels at that kind of thing, but I think it's going to be the person who dies least that will truly be at an edge. And honestly, even though Skunkoff has got the worst time of the leaderboard, he does have a really safe, consistent style of play that I think could really help him in a game like this, and really give him a chance if something bad starts to happen to some of these other players. Though, just seeing how well they're taking this first few sections of the game, it is the earlier, easier sections, but still, I don't think I've seen a death from any players yet. They're all looking great.
Yeah, so far it's very, very good looking, very smooth. Mel West is just like half a screen ahead, and they're all oh, and first, that's for Mel West. Tough screen here, you have to barely thread your way between those two I don't know, tumbleweeds with spikes. I don't know exactly what they are, but they kill you if you touch them. And we are going to see throughout this weekend the like kind of personality of the speedrunner of those players. Mel West probably going to be that type of runner that goes for very aggressive strat but dies a little bit more, and as you said, Skunkoff might be the one that plays safer but with the least deaths. And since we have, whoa, tough screen here, secret area. Careful, Devil Tifa. Have to dodge all the spikes. Yeah, the plays are trading back and forth. Brother Main taking the lead right now. Mel West and Devil Tifa tied almost to the frame, and Skunkov right behind them. And it's going to be interesting. And I do hope like you pick a favorite and you see where your favorite goes, because like depending on their style, and you will understand pretty quickly what game they prefer. Obviously, Brother Main has a thing for the Andy's Night. I think I knew the game kind of well before the UD started, so that's a nice bonus for them. And yeah, so far so good. Overflow not too bad. And the category here is just like the first half of the game. You have to make yourself a friend, gathering a head, a body, and a heart. So we will see 9 different worlds, and each world is divided in about 20 screens. The game has a very nice flow to it, and you can see like the runners really never stop. There's no map, nothing preventing you for keeping going. But it gets very hard, and I'm super happy to see the runners not dying too much so far.
Yeah, these have been pretty fantastic runs from all 4 players. When you were talking about, who are you rooting for, someone who would maybe wait to see which player jumps out in front and then root for them, or if you're like me, you root for whoever's in last because you love the underdog. But if you're either of those people, tough luck, because everyone is right next to each other, so you're gonna have to find some other criteria to base your judgment on. Brother Main takes 1 death here in the jumping fish section, so Mel West is going to be the leader by, half a second, or it's getting to be a couple more seconds with a couple more tries here from Brother Main. Skunkov now getting into some of these trickier cloud sections, chasing Devil Tifa. Mel West is moving out in front. It's going to be the first one to reach the split. This is where the game offers 3 different routes, and generally when this happens, and there's not any kind of finding a new power-up that affects the other sequences, it only kind of doesn't matter which way you go first. Maybe there's like incredibly minor optimizations depending on how you come out of one screen and the other, but really you go whichever is hardest first, so that if you die there at the hard part and you reset your speed run, then you go back to the beginning. It doesn't matter too much for a race, but it does make things nice and consistent when the players do all the things in the same order. So they're heading to the Wall of Sorrow first, and it is very tricky.
It is definitely the hardest in grind. So far, not too bad, except for those moving spikes that you have to fast fall to make the cycle they all made. And we'll see the first, like the most awful enemies, and then the world right after that is Exodus, which is definitely one of the hardest, very reminiscent of Mario Bros. 3 ships with all those cannons shooting at you. And Mel West right on the same screen as Brother Main, but dying a couple of times here. Devil Tifa, they're right behind them, and Skunkov is 1 screen behind Devil Tifa, so it's down to the screen difference so far. But Brother Main showing up a very nice strat, but failing midway, and Mel West having it and dying on the final spikes of that screen. Very terrible. Those moving enemies are definitely the worst. They are hard to yeah, they're not very predictable, and if you manipulate them well enough, you can ride along on their skull, which is a crazy good time save, but also very difficult to pull off. You can see Brother Main doing very well. They're magnificent, and they're 2 screens ahead now.
Yeah, these birds they're designed in a way that these paths exist, that you can ride them up and go very fast, but they knew that players were going to do that, so they put a second bird that dive bombs you right as you are about to make a transition back over to the left. So you either need to figure out how to steer the bird or dodge it, and yeah, they were pretty clever with the way they placed these things. Thankfully the players don't have to worry about them anymore. Mel West using them to his advantage, the best of the players, trying trying to gain some ground and put some distance, but players are all still so close. Brother Main, through that really tricky section, is going to be the first one to reach the final elevator of the Wall of Sorrow. Mel West and Devil Tifa are almost neck and neck here. Oh, Devil Tifa just barely not finding the ledge to kick off and get to the end of the screen, so dropping further back.
That's a weird mistake they're doing here, jumping a bit too high twice. Kind of costly, but it's okay. As I said earlier, it's 1 point every 6 seconds. Each point is going to count, but as long as you don't let too much time be between you and the first place, you can catch up. Once again, it is 10 games in a row. Mel is taking 2 deaths here. I'm surprised, resetting again. You can die intentionally if you are getting off cycle. It usually is faster to start again rather than struggling with a cycle you don't really know how to deal with. But yeah, that's something you don't really want to happen too much because time adds up.
Skunkov is now into the SS Exodus with the other players. This is where Skunkov's safer strategies, they tend to be a little bit more slower than they were before compared to the optimal. So unless mistakes start to happen from some of these other players, you're going to start to see Skunkov fall off a little bit from about this point through the machine, I would say. So this is where he really wants to just, you know, stay solid and do his best. I mean, it's good advice for pretty much any point of the game in any game, but here in particular is what he's going to be looking for. Brother Main is able to get the speed to break through those blocks and move on to this next section. We've had some deaths of all over the place lately, but Brother Main seems to have shaken it off and found his groove, is moving very well through the later half of the Exodus.
Yeah, like this is good, very good looking for him. But I'm looking at last week's tournament, and Skunkov actually lost 60 points on the Undisnai, as we see Brother Main dying a couple of times here, but yeah, he made it finally. And 60 points is 6 minutes, and that's a lot. You don't want to be 6 minutes behind right off the bat, but that might happen, and I do hope he practiced the game a little bit, but it looks like it did, because he's not too far behind Devil Tifa, and they're dying also on that Exodus screen, and they are all very close to each other, but it looks like it's Brother Main that's going to be grabbing the the head first on Exodus here, menuing as they catch the head, so they don't have like that tiny cutscene with Ash, the main character, picking up the head, and you know, being very happy about it. Yeah, you want to move forward very quickly, and they get to retrograde, which is not the hardest of the worlds remaining, but there are like some pretty intense strats, and sometimes you just have to wait like they're doing right now. Devil Tifa and Mel West are on retrograde as well, and Skunkov, they're just about 5 screens behind. It's not too much, but you don't want to let that happen either.
Yeah, the waiting in retrograde compared to a lot of the fast cycles, like whenever there's like one of those guns shooting on Exodus and the machine, they fire very quickly, so they've increased the pace of the level, and coming off that fast pace into the slower pace of retrograde can catch some players a little off guard, but otherwise it is a nice little break, perhaps, compared to Exodus and the machine. Probably two of the hardest sections. Golgoth has definitely got some tricks to it, but I think those are the 2 hardest. Brother Main, taking a death, is going to reset and wants to not play the screen from a fresh reset, and wants to come in with some speed at a certain angle. These things can matter. Certain strats work by you entering the screen, the previous screen, in a certain way compared to where it puts you when you do the fresh restart. So nice heads up play there, knowing that, you know, if this happens, I do want to leave and come at this screen again. That's the kind of thing that can catch you. It's pretty common for one death to lead to another or more, or at least some hesitation, but there was no hesitation there for Brother Me. Knew exactly what to do.
Yeah, that's a player that's already had trouble with dying there and knew they had to reset the screen. Having to wait an extra cycle at the start of the machine here, kind of costly wait. We'll see Devil Thief and Melwest almost catching up, and that's why I said like the time difference was not much yet, because it can look like a lot, but 5 screens, you know, some screens go very, very fast. Nice use of the like anti-grav waterfalls there, and they keep your momentum and they behave pretty weird. They're like water that propel you a little bit upward, and you can, if you keep pressed jump and down, you can have like a weird upward momentum that's allowed the players to grab on the top platform of those anti-grav waterfalls when you're not really supposed to, and that's a nice trick to know about. It's kind of tricky to do though, and but I mean, had a fantastic run in those levels. Grabbing a thermal here, you don't need them in that category, but you know, sometimes you cannot help but grabbing them, and they're on the way.
Sometimes they're designed as an extra challenge where they force you to play the stage quickly. Oh no, but for a speedrun, you're kind of doing that anyway. Sometimes you go too fast and you actually would have to slow down to get the tumor, compared to these guys who are showing no signs of slowing down, moving very quickly through what I think is the hardest part of the run in the machine here, combining elements from all kinds of other sequences, and also just adding in these damn guns. They're just, they're the worst single obstacle type in the game. And they fire so quickly. There's always so many of them. The bullets are very distracting. You need to figure out which are ones I actually need to care about right now and dodge, and which are ones that are not going to be a factor, so don't even worry about them. And the conveyor belts as well throw in some pretty just messing with things a little bit more, like this, like the spike that's timed to be right there at the edge. Yeah, there's some mean stuff going on here, but Brother Mean knows what he's doing and is holding on to this lead.
Yeah, I wonder how many times they died, because it looks certainly like not much. And you know, some screens you can not really go fast, like here you have to wait for that square block at the right of the screen to go up and down, so as long as you don't die, you will have the optimal time here. And some screens you have like the end design is not designed around economy. It's way too much all the time. You have stuff everywhere, and you have to know what to dodge, what matters and what doesn't. And that can be tricky. Like here, the moving blocks actually cannot hurt you as long as you keep moving, but the chain chomps are actually super scary, and it's all about distraction. That screen can be tricky. A lot of players have different setup, very nicely done, and this is probably one of the hardest screens in the game, with that machine gun shooting way too fast at you and is like following you around pretty well. But Brother Main, no problem, no issue whatsoever, and that's going to be, if it keeps going like that, a good confidence boost, because it doesn't look like a huge lead, but even if you are just a couple of points ahead, being ahead after the first game certainly helps for your morale.
And the way things are going, he definitely will be ahead. Took one quick death as soon as I started talking, but all through the end of the machine was looking, you know, not just good, but great, actually. Was hitting all of the earliest cycles, was showing no signs of hesitating in lots of situations where it's very reasonable to hesitate even a little bit. Melwest taking a death here on that horrible gun. He's jumping to get on this conveyor belt as soon as he can, and was a little too soon twice there. So third time he made an adjustment and made it work. As he's dropped back to third. Devil Teeth is going to be the second one into the hollow, which is this dark That's the whole thing. It's dark. Some things are lit up, and you are lit up, and enemies are lit up, and by lighting up certain parts of the stage, usually by with your body, you can start to see all the horrible things that you don't want to touch with your body. There's definitely some gamma tricks you can do by increasing the gamma and being able to see some things, but generally, whereabouts they're gonna be. So it doesn't play too much of a role in the speedrun, and that's kind of this whole area's thing. So for a speedrunner, this section is definitely quite a bit easier, and is kind of like Retrograde, a sort of slowdown in pace before the finale of Golgotha here.
Golgotha, probably the most disturbing area of the game, like with that bright red. It can be pretty distracting. You have to be able to keep analyzing what's the danger and what doesn't matter. You have all the time that red water, maybe it's blood, I don't know, but it kills you if you touch it, so probably just lava, I don't know. And the main issue are those chain jumps. They're placed exactly where you don't want them to be, obviously, and the level design has its genius to it, where if you try to go fast, some extra difficulty rise, like some spikes and some cycles are just there to throw off faster players because of those tumors. Those tumors are placed to offer an extra challenge, and usually you have to go fast to grab them, and it's all designed around little tricks. But some screens are way easier when you know what you're doing. Those spikes, pretty hard to beat the cycle, so you have to play along with what the level wants you to do. So Brother Main has no issue whatsoever, and this is the hardest single level in this category. Brother Main making it look like it's so easy, but do trust me, this is super difficult. I don't even know exactly what it's doing, but it is so precise that, yeah, very, very well done. Brother Main's definitely in their zone right now in the end is nigh, and yeah, the lead is actually increasing right now.
Yeah, he is on fire. This has been a phenomenal Golgotha after an incredibly strong finish to the machine. He's pretty much done. He's got one last screen here, which is definitely one of the easiest of the world, and he is done. This is a fantastic time in the end is nigh. Earned a lead about 2/3 of the race and kept it, and then just built on it towards the end. Brother Mean looking fantastic through game number 1.
25 seconds behind PB. That's going to be almost 200 points. 200 are kind of what you want to aim for every game. It's a good grade. It's just A, you've passed, no problem, you are an excellent runner, and they're going to be at 196, 197, so that's an incredible time. By the way, you can see some time difference between the timer of the runners, because we are going with in-game time, just so the runners are compared to what's fair. And yeah, Melwest, they're going to be almost 2 minutes behind Brother Main here, maybe even more, and that's definitely going to be a nice confidence boost for Brother Main. Skunkoff, they're not too far behind, and maybe that's the game they're feared the most for today, maybe with Mel Slug. And maybe we have our underdog here and our clear leader so far. Devil Tiffan, they're done also. Melwest done in 22, very nice. And yeah, Skunkoff, as they have, I don't know, about a couple of levels left.
He has positioned his timer right over the level indicator, so for us commentators, we end up going, this is 9, 10, somewhere around there. But you might think, oh, well, he's last now, so what? But the way the UD works is that every point matters across every game, so even if the other players have already finished, Skunkoff wants as many points here as he can get, so it is very important that he stays as solid as he was, and it looks like it's getting away from him a little bit. He's even trying some different openings to this stage was tired of going for that first jump, so went with a wait and then fall down and grab strategy. Definitely overall seems to be a little shakier on the later sections of this game. This is a game that he's come to somewhat recently compared to the other players, identified it as a weak spot and put some work in. And I think maybe more of that work went into the earlier sections of the game than the later sections, or maybe an equal amount of work, and then these sections are just harder and require a little more. But Skunkoff, I think, is going to be... He's going to get better at this game, particularly the later sections, over the course of the next couple months for UD to play out. So very early yet, certainly. He might just qualify today and then not have to even think about it. I mean, he's going to keep playing because he's just going to compete in grand finals. But you know what I mean. He could go the distance here today, and he's going to need all those points he can get. So his final time is going to be a mid 24 here.
Yeah, they just have to go back to the base and build a friend, and yeah, that's yeah, okay. Nice. That's it. 24:35. That's about 4 minutes behind Bothermain's time. So that's a smaller time difference than what we've seen last week. But definitely now we need Skunkoff to come back a little bit. So that's going to be interesting to follow and see if Bothermain, if he can keep his lead, or if a story about my uncle tells a different story from what happened last week actually. But yeah, so far very good times all over the place. 2024 for Bothermain, as we've seen. Very close time between Double Tifa and Melwest, and Skunkoff at 24:34. What do you think?
Well, you probably saw me a little distracted when we first cut from the race because I had to look. I think this is a minute PB for Skunkoff in The End Is Nigh, currently showing a 25-minute time on the leaderboard. So gotta be just thrilled with that performance in game number 1. Even if he's 2 minutes back, you gotta do what you gotta do on each game. He knows he's got some advantages in some of the other games. So to come up so big in sort of covering one of his weaknesses here in The End Is Nigh, he's put himself in a great chance to start to come back in some of these other games. So great job from Skunkoff, solid performance from Devil Tifa and Melwest, and just a fantastic run from Bothermain, who has jumped out into the first lead. Next up, a story about my uncle. The players are all pretty evenly matched here. One of the few cases where I would say that is true, particularly with the 5 games today. Cuphead is definitely one where everyone's pretty evenly matched, and that's kind of about it. There's kind of a scale, at least like a 30-point gap between best and worst across these 4 players, and it's never the same player at the top and the same player at the bottom. They definitely have some really varied skill sets. So I think A Story About My Uncle should be one of our closest, most exciting races, and that means it's also going to be an important one.
Yeah, what we've seen last week was Melwest losing 40 points on A Story About My Uncle, which was very surprising. Double Tifa, they lost all their time right away on the first level, the Sanctuary. That level has some very, very tough tricks to it, and yeah, you'll see just on the screen like what's Story About My Uncle. If you don't know the game yet, it's that first-person platformer. You have that grappling hook that makes possible like a huge amount of different moving techniques, and like any game with a grappling hook is a good speed game because it's I don't know, an easy to understand, hard to master kind of movement, and it's always something that you can take more advantage of. You can go faster, you can swing a bit higher, and Story About My Uncle is no different, and that category has been worked on by a kind of big community. We've seen the game on SGDQ this year. The world record is at 27 minutes, and anything sub 31 today would be amazing, to be honest. Like, I do hope all the runners practiced a little bit on a story about my uncle, because that is one game you can really easily tilt on. Like, if grapple doesn't work the way you want, if you are barely not far enough. Do you remember that part on Star Heaven where Devil Tifa and Meloes got stuck right at the on the first half of the level after the first checkpoint? That both got stuck and had to revert to an easier strat to pass the few rocks they had to climb on. That was pretty tough to watch, to be honest, because I know those runners worked on that game very hard, and sometimes just doesn't work as well as we've seen on the Endless Night, for example.
Yeah, it was especially hard to watch for Devil Tifa, who at that point it had been the second time where they had got caught up and stuck on something and had to change to a different strat. And I'm thinking of the jumps out of bounds in Sanctuary. So that was the second of two pretty big mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes of Devil Tifa. And they weren't even the last. There were more troubles in Ice Cave as well, not just for Devil Tifa, not just for Mel West, but pretty much everyone we had on stream. But perhaps especially Mel West, who almost didn't even finish in the ice caves, had a one moment where he used his last grapple to hit a crystal to refresh your grapples, and just barely missed the crystal. Didn't have another shot to refresh it. Fell, lost a big chunk of time after already struggling earlier, and it looked like he was just going to tap out and not post a time at all, which is that's huge. The difference between having a bad run and having no run is at least 100 points. So for someone to be so out of sorts that they would even consider giving up the 100 points, which of course he didn't, and played it out and qualified, and is probably still one of the favorites today. That this game got him that bad is definitely something that he's going to be thinking about in this race today. Conversely, Brother Main and Skunkoff both did quite well, especially compared to their PBs. This was one game among pretty much all five that Brother Main kind of dominated last weekend, and has come out swinging in game number one. So I don't know. Normally, I tend to say the favorite is the person with the better time. It's kind of the rock solid thing in speedrunning, is that generally the better PB means the better chance to win a race. But Brother Main is just looking so solid right now, and the other players have had some moments. So we'll see. As we're off to a very sort of unexciting start here in the workshop.
Yeah, like the game has like this is story driven, and the start is with Melwest caught up in the cutscene here. They started the game just a bit later. That doesn't matter. They will have like a 20-second time difference in their timer. Not a problem at all. And we are getting our full suit that allows us to jump faster and jump higher. And we will get on that teleporter that gets us on the crazy world that our uncle built, and we are looking after an uncle, looking for him, and no one knows where he got, and it's going to be some intense platforming to get to him. But first, we don't have anything actually, just like the high jump and long jump abilities, and we will have to build on our suit with getting the grapple abilities and different charges for that. And not having anything probably explains why the Sanctuary is the hardest level in the game, because you cannot save yourself. Like a just tiny mistake in tiny angle mistake, and your jump will fling you into the kill boxes that riddle the game. And yeah, so good luck for runners, because it starts really like it's an intense start right now. Devil Tifa just in the lead, barely landing at 140, 142, 143 for Brotherman and Skunkov. And yeah, we can see that power leap right away, and you can see that you can land on very tiny rocks. Very good jump here for Devil Tifa, Brotherman clearing it as well. Skunkov also very nice. That's a good confidence boost because those two jumps at the start are not easy at all.
Ooh, barely getting on the early cycle is Devil Tifa, Brother Main as well. This is the first instance of things operating on cycles. There's quite a lot of them in this game, and you can see pretty much anything that's moving is moving on a cycle. And early on, especially this early on, you can count on them being in roughly the same place when you're doing the same thing. But missing the grapple, Devil Tifa, or early on having some it's not the biggest mistake, but after some of those other mishaps last weekend, you really want to get off on the right foot and prove to yourself that, no, I can do this. Just do it like we drew it up in practice. And so to have it not go like you drew it up right off the start could be something that he's going to be thinking about. So it looks to be right back on track, though.
Yeah, the problem with Sanctuary, it's like it's all cycle based, and dying there, they know they will be off cycle at some point. It doesn't matter too much as long as you are aware of that fact. That OB section can be very scary, but they clear it without stopping, very nice. And that final jump got them last week, so you have to aim very high and grapple super early. If not, your downward momentum will pull you into the kill box before your grapple pulls you upward, because this is not like really a grappling hook. It retracts, it contracts on itself, pulling you towards the point where you grappled onto, which is interesting. It allows for some huge momentum gain, as we can see here. And Devil Tifa, they will grab the crystal first, which allows for having 2 grapples without touching the ground instead of just the one, which the level design takes advantage of right away. Mel West with a very nice skip here. Oh, and bounces on the rock. That hurts.
Yeah, you cannot hit your head on anything in this game, or it will kill you, pretty much. That's kind of a theme, I guess, across the UD games and maybe games in general, I suppose. But it is definitely especially true here, as we saw. It is you might think like, well, you just, once you hit the beam, you just let go of the beam and it flings you, but it's actually so much more precise than that, and that these players are making it look. So we saw just how it can go. In that moment there from Mal West, you really do need to make sure you're grappling right on the edges of all these things so that you only barely brush past whatever it is you're grappling to and maintain all of your speed upwards. So lost some time before that, and then lost some time, as we saw when we were focusing on him. So Mal West has dropped back quite a ways here early on in Sanctuary. There's still a lot more Story About My Uncle left to go, and certainly it's only game 2 of 10, but still, this is where Mel West stands for now, in 4th place of the racers on stream. We got some players finishing Sanctuary. Once you start the text, basically, you know that you're clear, you've hit the trigger, and you can kind of do whatever you want, look under the level, mess with the camera, and that theme will continue through the early sections of the village here, where we have an unskippable cutscene meeting the delightful Maggie, I can't remember. Maddie, I think. Madeline. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the character that will tell the story for the biggest part of the game. The character will be with us for the next 3 levels, but as we don't care too much about story in a speedrun. The goal is to get to the end of the game, whatever it takes. If it's like by ignoring a cute character, let's do that. And that character actually gets kind of annoying because they commentate whatever you do, whatever you jump you do, and it can get pretty annoying. So, for the reset experience, you might want to you know, have a good peek inside our brain here and just ignore the character altogether after that. But yeah, off we go. The cutscene stops. I would like to point out that on the ground you see those blue runes. They are the checkpoints, and the game has a lot of them here. But sadly, in a speedrun like that, we do skip a lot of checkpoints, like just having some different routes and some different, not like landing on the ground where the checkpoint is. And it actually, when you play the game like casually, it feels like you respawn just where you left the game, but in a speedrun you actually lose a lot of time in a story about Miracle. When you die, you can lose up to, I don't know, a minute on the worst parts, especially on level 4, and on level 3 it's insane. You have like barely a checkpoint to hold on to, so it's definitely scary to die, and you take some big risk. If you can see on the Ultifast screen here, they're barely making it, trying to land as little as possible. Brother Main landing on that small pebble to recharge the grapple, barely catching that rock. That was scary. And yeah, they're very close, and they missed the skip here, the cutscene skip, and had to go to the menu and back again, being caught up again on the dialogue box. And this is a tough part of the speedrun. Brotherman cleared that very nicely.
Yeah, this is there's a lot of tricky stuff in this game. This is kind of, it's not up there with the trickiest, but it's definitely got its challenges, and it's definitely punishing. You cannot watch the cutscene. It's way too long. And it takes time to reset and try again. So we actually saw Devil Tifa earn a lead through some really good play in the village, though it started off with a really scary moment, but he held on and then kind of lost it on that skip, making sure that you avoid the triggers. There's a couple more trigger avoidances that will the players are going to do their best on coming up as we're finishing off the village section. It's quite similar to the chasm, except you can see where you're going. So that's going to change in just a little bit, as Devil Tifa is forced to wait for one of these cycles, basically. Brother Main is jumping off into the abyss after hitting the trigger for the cutscene, and is behind Skunkoff, who is in the lead, the first one into the caverns.
Yeah, they are so close to each other. It's crazy because, like, it's always more surprising to me when a 3D game gets like super close race compared to 2D games. I don't know why, but I have that feeling that the time difference can change very quickly. And Brother Main takes the lead by a couple of meters there, and we'll get onto that skip. So this is the chasms, and what's specific about that level is that we cannot see anything. It's pitch black. And you want to grab onto the wall here without seeing exactly what you're doing, so you can get onto that platform. You are supposed to get there, but definitely not that way. And once again here, just grabbing onto the wall of the caverns, and we are getting barely onto that platform on Brother Main's screens, catching a checkpoint here, which is very nice. Yeah, that's a tough skip. It's super hard to learn, to be honest, because you have no clue whatsoever on what's happening. So it's very hard to tell if you're doing anything wrong and what's wrong about the way you're doing things. But once you get to hang on to that, apparently for the runners it's not too bad. Brother Main taking the safety checkpoint here. If I remember correctly, I don't know if it's Brother Main or someone else, but someone had troubles here. But yeah, no problem today for Brother Main. Skunkoff is just one checkpoint behind. Very well. Very well done here. Very nice level for both of them.
Malwest getting the skip as well. Yeah, the setup for the skip actually involves moving your mouse as little as possible, just because there is no visual cue. So keeping as many things controlled as you can help increase your consistency. Your icon will light up whenever you are finally in range to grapple something. in some cases, you want to be grappling before it lights up so that you're not, you're grappling as soon as possible. But you can use that light up indication to get a feel for kind of where the juts in the wall are. There's not many, and you'll never find them otherwise. But you can use that a little bit to help you out. But you are very much in the dark. So we're moving on to this lovely little eye creature here. There is a lot more forced waiting here if you are following the sort of main story and you come here the way you're supposed to. You will end up waiting a little bit more, but the players get a head start and can get by without waiting. I think you gotta wait once, basically, with your kind of introduction to this eye creature. But everyone is out of the chasms now, and it looks like it's going to be Brother Main out in front, first one to start swinging here through Starhaven.
Yeah, Skunkov and Devil Tifa are very close to each other, like almost grappling at the same time. You can see when the players are so close to each other that
even the hands swiping on the sides.
And like they have a very set pattern. Nothing is left to is random. Like you grapple on exactly some specific rocks, so you have the best round. It's a very, very fixed speedrun at that point, and like the runners have worked on their strats, and we are getting at the part that got up Melwest and Devil Tifa last week here, so we'll see how well it goes for them. Brother Main passed the challenge with no problem whatsoever. You want to grapple high enough there where Skunkov is so you clear that rock. If you are just barely too low, you will bonk your entire body and lose all your momentum. But Devil Tifa took a safety strat here and they all passed. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, after last weekend and a couple stumbles here and there, I was starting to wonder, certainly the players were starting to wonder how this section was going to go, trying to think about it such that you're ready for it, but don't think about it too much so you don't psych yourself out. Melwest had it. He had it,
what
but
happened?
He went for the early cycle on one of the fans that was going by. He thought he could jump fast enough and sort of catch up to it, but that indicator didn't light up, and he realized I am not going to be able to get this grapple, so he had to reset and try it again, was past the hard stuff, and then just tried to optimize the easy stuff a little bit too much, so that's going to cost him quite a bit. He is the furthest behind, and he drops back even a little bit further, but it's going to be Brother Main's going to be the first one. I mean, he's out in front, but he's the first one to acquire the rocket boots, which are a really important upgrade.
Yeah, Skunkov just got the rocket boots, and Devil Tifa, I don't get where they are. They were so close, I'm lost, I'm confused where the time difference came from. Probably died somewhere I missed, because like they got very far behind. Got the rocket boots just now. Melwest, they still are about, I don't know, minute 30 behind. That's not too much. You want to keep up with the pace. It's definitely a scary game, especially when you're behind and when something happens the wrong way. And Melwest falls down. The fans kills all this momentum, bonked his body on a weird little plank there. Yeah, that's probably why some runners dislike that game so greatly. It's because like if just a one tiny mistake with your positioning, sometimes it even feels like it's the game that kills you in an unfair manner, and you will lose so much time. But they finally got the rocket boots, and Brother Main still breathing through the game here. We can see that the rocket boots do exactly what you get there. You guess what they're doing. Just a giant boost whenever you want. It's kind of a double jump that gives you super extra momentum whenever you want, allowing you to grapple. Wow, what happened there?
What? Okay. I
Is
that seemed planned. That seemed. I don't think that was accidental, but I
yeah,
definitely did not know that was the
it
thing. He grappled and then reset and maintained the grapple after the teleport back to the checkpoint,
wow,
and whatever, it worked.
that gave them such a big. Oh, and they know. Okay,
Rocket
that's
boots,
what you want. Why you want the rocket?
safety.
Yeah,
Okay,
very nice. Because that gave them such better skip. Usually, when you get there, you don't have any charges left. As we can see on Devil Defense screen, they use all their grapples, so you will have to boost above the dialogue box, so you skip the dialogue, but then you have like that awkward walk. And Devil Defense, they got caught in the cutscene again and have to reset here. And they did not get the checkpoint. They got confused on where they were. But yeah, Brother Man with a crazy strat, they did it again here. I don't know if it's intentional, because that's certainly the first time you can see that.
it's got to be intentional. After the second time, I don't
Yeah.
know if this is something he's kept under his cap and has just pulled it out here in the middle of a race. I'm not sure, but it's making these skips so much easier. We can see, Double Tifa is really good at this game, but he's gotten trapped in at least two now up to this point. And this trick that Brother Main is using here that I don't think any of the other players know, certainly you and I didn't know.
Yeah.
This is giving him an edge in these cutscene skips and who knows where else.
Well, actually, Skunkov, since Brother Main died after the cutscene skip and had to redo the trick again so we could take a good look at it, Skunkov is miles ahead now. We can see he's on the final crate, where Brother Main, they were a good way ahead into the Star Heaven, the level 4, but have about a minute to make up for it now. Devil Tifa and Brother Main are actually right on the same fan here. Devil Tifa was a little bit ahead. I will have to look to watch that race again, because yeah, I'm speechless right now.
It's definitely pretty cool. Speedrunning is there's not a lot of secrets in speedrunning. Generally, things are found through a communal effort. So it's even if someone finds something and keeps it to themselves and incorporates it into a world record, then the video's out there and everyone sees it. So for that reason, no one really ever keeps anything to themselves. So it's pretty rare that you see someone do something new like that and have an advantage in that way. If that is what's going on, maybe this is a recent discovery that the other players, just haven't learned and didn't incorporate. I'm not sure what the story is, but it is a very cool moment that has happened here. Another cool moment is just the fact that Skunkoff is in the lead here. Has slightly weaker times compared to the others, though it's still comparable. But had dropped back a couple minutes in the end is nigh. Has to worry about Metal Slug later on. So every point is important, especially in games like this.
Yeah, look at the character feats. Like, that guy is crazy. He is leading the ship that gets us to level 5, the Ice Caverns. Probably like the second hardest level in the game. You have some very specific mechanics that happens on that level, especially the ice. You cannot grapple onto it at all. It reflects your grapple or whatever. But you can grapple through the blocks if you know that there's something that you can grapple onto right there. Oh, and Skunkov actually double grapple by accident and has to reset here. No problem. You have barely making it. And if you know what's going on, you can get like, this is actually a skip. You are supposed to take a long detour into a cavern, then you touch a big pile of crystals and everything starts crumbling down. The ice that covered that block Skunkov grapple onto shatters, and you can keep going. But if you know what you're doing, no problem. They get back their boost here, out of bound, very nice. Sometimes it doesn't work the way you want, but here no problem. And then you do that climb with a very clever way, landing on the rocks, so you can get your grapple back. Interesting route once again by Skunkov. That's not the usual one. It looks safer, I guess. Even maybe faster even. Like, I know that game. We saw a lot of runs of Story About My Uncle, but a lot of weird stuff is happening right now.
Yeah, showing off some new stuff. I mean, the UD is there's a lot of people who are get thrown at these games, and people find things and new things get discovered. Certainly, we saw Spectra Ball get blown wide open. The world record is now minutes ahead of where it was. So especially with newer games or games with smaller communities, there's stuff is waiting to be found, and even this far into the UD season, there's apparently always still more to find. Skunkov maintains the lead. There's some pretty solid Ice Cavern play. Melwest, Devil Tifa, Brother Main, all joined him in the Ice Cavern. I think Melwest still in last place. Brother Main, Devil Tifa quite close to each other, jumping on this really dark section across this left wall, which is about, I think it's about 30 seconds, maybe 45 behind Skunkov, which is a pretty nice lead. Skunkov is now into this section that is past this long fall here. Brother Main is going to show off what the long fall looks like. That's not quite where you're supposed to land in the game, because there's a trigger that takes away your rocket boots. They break off this really long fall, and we really want our rocket boots. So one more thing is skipped in this game. We skip that trigger where we lose the rocket boots, but we get to keep it for the vertical section. Skunkov actually already threw it because the rocket boots make it go so quickly. It's designed for you to not have them, and you do. So you just boost past everything. So he finds the cutscene, the trigger, where you quote unquote fix your rocket boots that are already perfectly fine, and he's going to be moving on to the final sections of the game.
Yeah, they got like a very nice boost into the caverns. If you touch the ground, exactly where Devil Tifa and Brother Main are right now, if you touch the ground here, you have to walk. Yeah, so Brother Main trying to trigger the boost here and having to walk there, but Skunkov, that did not like take a single step, got a very nice section there, and yeah, even the lead is increasing right now. Melwest not too far behind, but it can be deceiving. Like, it's pretty hard to estimate time correctly, but I feel like they had a very nice ice caverns. I said that up until they soft-locked themselves, missing the point where you have to repair your boots. They're not broken, but you still have to repair them, or the game just shuts down pretty much.
Yeah, so it also forces you in that weird state where you're walking. So he couldn't get back up to find that trigger. Boosted too well. And is maybe a little frustrated. I don't know if it's frustration or if it's just boredom or what, but a lot of players, whenever they're forced to wait, you'll see the mouse flicks, I don't want to read too much into it, but this is about where Melwest really had some troubles, and definitely some troubles in terms of how his run went, but also just troubles from a mental state of getting held up here. It's this final run that Skunkov is on, this really cool, the Spider-Man section, like he said, repeatedly charging up your grapples off of these crystals and this smooth downward swing. There's a final sort of landing point you can do here. He's going really aggressive with the rocket boots, and he's perfectly lined up, so there's no way he's going to blow it with the final charge into the cave. He's got it totally under control, man. This has been a fantastic story about my uncle for Skunkov.
Yeah, this is one of the best run we've ever seen for a story about my uncle live on Speed Gaming, and like, this is going to be very close to sub 30 even, or maybe sub 30, which is first a crazy good time. But what's more amazing is that Brother Main, they were 20 seconds ahead of Skunkov starting at level 4. And not only Skunkov caught up with that, they like completely smashed the final 2 levels. Brodamin showed some interesting techniques on Star Heaven, but yeah, it's very good because Skankov was probably right off the bat the underdog. Got disappointing the MD's Nye overall, but apparently got PB, so super exciting. The MD's Nye for Skankov is going to be very pleased with a story about my uncle right now. Mel West had a very difficult time with a story about my uncle last week, so they're going to be a bit, feel a bit better with the game. Only 2 minutes behind the first runner, so that's only 20 points difference between the first and the fourth, so which is actually pretty good for all of them. And yeah, very nice race overall. I do recommend to anyone that this is probably my favorite story about my uncle run we've seen, like with the new techniques from Brotherman and Skunkov and the actual like super smooth execution from all of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a treat to watch Skunkov's pretty much entire ice cave section. I can't think of anything that really went wrong, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong in the ice caves, both small and big. There was, I wanted to talk about how, look how much easier this section is when you have the rocket boots, but he's already through it before I could even finish talking about it. It was just really smooth, really fluid, really great to watch. And what's a little less great to watch is this final cutscene. Certainly when you're actually playing the game, it's nice to finally meet the titular uncle and that you've been chasing this whole time, and he tells you what's actually been going on, and you learn some things, and it's a nice moment, or well, it's an okay moment, and it leads up to a really nice moment at the end.
Yeah.
But it's just waiting here for this really long cutscene. All the players catch up to each other. If you were just joining us at a glance, it might look like they're all tied, but there's actually like a minute difference at least here, as Skunkov's the first one to get rocketed back to the to Earth, I guess, or whatever, or the universe, or wherever we are that is not there. And then just one final section where you're back visiting the workshop as an adult after you've grown up and you've had kids. There's this narrative where you're telling the story about your uncle to your daughter, and so this is you, older as a father, coming back to Fred's workshop, and you make your way through, and I guess you'll see in a little bit, but it is a sweet, tender story moment. In terms of speedrunning, you make sure you don't get hung up on anything as best you can.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like my only like very big moment here is, will Skunkov get its first sub 30? Like it is close, but feels like it, and that's an incredible second PB in a row from Skunkov if that's the case, which would be like, an insane good start. It's very close though. This is a long walk section. It's almost done. Their PB is 30:15 if I recall correctly.
Go!
And yeah, that's
the box skip.
Going to be...
Oh, but it's not going to be enough.
Oh,
I wouldn't have thought
enough.
this sequence would ever be interesting to watch in this way. But the rush for the sub 30 actually made it pretty exciting.
It
looks like
almost
he's
not PB actually, like 13, 14, tight PB.
Is he gonna tie it?
Tight PB apparently, 13.
Oh my god!
I don't know how accurate our timer is. Maybe it's right off. Maybe it's 30:17 or 30:15. But yeah, that game was a story about my uncle. It's probably the least exciting one of the entire selection, because of all those cutscenes and narrative. Right after that, in the exact opposite of the genres, we have Metal Slug, that 2D run and gun filled with action. So it's going to be interesting to have a nice change of pace. I wonder how hard it is to switch from a game like A Story About My Uncle to a game like Metal Slug.
I've had one experience with this sort of thing. I did the first Big 20, and I was kind of surprised at how quickly I could go from one game to the other. Certainly in the Big 20, it doesn't make an effort to span genres. I mean, it's all on the same console, so you're not going to get a third-person 3D game or a first-person 3D game, rather. But you know, as soon as I gain control of a character, some things start to snap into place, and maybe not everything, but enough to get you going, and enough that more and more things start to click. So, um, but you know, that's me, right there. It can be something that's different from not me, and I'm so great. I mean, that's just how I work, and people work differently. So, um, it definitely can be a factor for some players, and there's definitely, I think it's Brother Main usually will take the opportunity to switch games as soon as possible and start practicing the next one. Or maybe it's Zoph I'm thinking of that has that habit. So it's definitely a thing for some players. Final time for Skunkov is actually a 30:16, so
Oh.
1 second off the PB. Still a phenomenal time.
Yeah, they are 45 seconds ahead of Devil Tifa, 50 seconds ahead of Brother Main. Very close race overall. Like the time difference between Melwest and Skunkov is actually just under a minute. So that's very good. All the players are very close together. That's probably one of those race that had the potential, as you said, to be like very even, and definitely that's what we've seen. I really felt like Melwest was far behind the whole time, but they actually caught up with time as the run passed, and yeah, this is a very good final time. They totally could have had way better run. Tough time on the first level. We saw on the ice caves a couple of mishaps, especially like the boost that was too good for the game, which is always a bit disappointing when you get something so good that the game punishes you for that. You know, that's the whole, you want to go fast but you want to slow down the type of deal. But I'm a bit worried now because all those players go so fast. We are going to be too much ahead of the schedule. We have 3 games to go, probably one of the longest one of the UD remaining, Castlevania Eye of Sorrow. But Metal Slug and Trials can go very fast, and probably Metal Slug is going to be the most important game of the 5 we do so today.
I think so. It's definitely Skunkov's most important game. He has done a really great job of holding on and getting points wherever he can with pretty much back-to-back PBs. He's still behind by about 15 points or so, and the Metal Slug is not the game where he's going to make a charge and pick up a bunch of points. This is a big weak spot of his. The other players are all at around the 170 point mark, and well, Brother Main actually at the 145, so there's a bit of a gap between him and Double Tifa and Mel West, and then about a same 30-point gap again between Brother Main and Skunkov for about a 60-point gap. Just doing the math there, and so this is the one where he really needs to sort of stem the bleeding. Skunkov does, and then he's well positioned. Trials is his best game. He can pick up some extra points there, and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is somewhat even, not as even as the story about my uncle, but it's definitely pretty close. It's a game where lots of things can happen, so he'll put himself in a good position for day one if he can hold on and do something good here. His PB has a lot of room for improvement in the sense that he misses the final boss fight. The big thing, in this game is the final boss fight. Yeah, you want to get the shotgun, you want to get the bombs, and you want to use them on the final boss. So that's so much harder than easier said than done. With making sure that the prisoner doesn't get away, and you keep the power up and you don't die, and all of that. So he misses that in his PB, and if he gets that, there's a minute plus saved right there. So Metal Slug is a game where it's possible for Skunkov to really overperform if he just gets this one thing and does pretty solidly throughout the rest. And if he does, then he'll be right there with the leaders, and it could be really exciting.
Well, there are another outcome or at least two other outcomes I can think of. Skunkov does not do too much better than his PB, and it weighs about like 140 points at the end. And some other runners, say maybe Brothermain that currently leads with a 20 points lead, also fails the final boss and lose about like 20-25 points there. And either of Devil Tifa or Melwest can take the lead after that. Or Skunkov manages to get a good time and everybody else doesn't, because Metal Slug is probably, like, it has some RNG to it, but it's the most precise execution. You, in a weird sense, like, you have to be exactly at the same spot at the same time, because you have to anticipate everything that happens on screen. If you are just barely misplaced, if you forget one soldier, you will get stuck on screen or get a bullet that shoots at you in an undodgeable way. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Mission 1 with, nothing too much to be said, except that you go twice as fast when you are jumping compared to when you are walking. So you will see the players stay in the air all the time, and being careful with that, because you have a much bigger hitbox on when you are jumping. So you have to kill the enemies as fast as possible all the time, and never stop jumping.
Never stop jumping. It is. I mean, well, there's some safety speed trade-offs you can make with the jumping. And I think actually we'll see Skunkov jump a little less in a couple situations. He will opt to keep his feet on the ground, keep his hitbox small, and keep his movement a little more predictable. When you're doing all these jumps, your jumps are nice and big, but you cannot make them any smaller. So it's very easy to launch yourself into the air and then find yourself unable to get out of the way of a bullet that's already up there. So in more ways than one, it helps to, it is safer to stay on the ground, though it is so much slower, like you said. So we'll be losing time for that time that the other players are not going to lose. They are going to play this more aggressively than Skunkov. Brothermain doing a really good job sweeping across with the pistol to pick up all the shots on the parachuters. And Skunkov, in his PB, actually doesn't handle this screen quite as well as he just did there. Picking up the flame right away and having some troubles with the parachuters, but not this time. Rocket launch chairs acquired for all players now, going to work on these boats. They're a little tricky. They break, but then they need more shots to break. But you're standing on them, so you don't want to totally sink them while you're standing on them. So there's you want to break them as you jump off of them, and there's a bit of you might rightly so hesitate to break whatever you're standing on, but shotgun acquired for Devil Tifa and Mel West. Skunkov is playing it really safe here, throwing some grenades from the high ground, but the lead here pretty firmly for Devil Tifa.
Yeah, very close so far. It is an interesting section here, because you want to keep the shotgun as much as possible, but you have so much things to kill that you have like some interesting usage of a lot of grenades, and even here Devil Tifa using both grenade and shotgun just to be sure, because yeah, it is an interesting game, like speedrun wise. It can look like not. Yeah, sometimes people say, hey, Metal Slug, it's not much a speedrun, more like a scoring game, but you can actually be super into like optimizing all your movement. You have like a lot of parts where you are stuck on the screen, and you actually have to just kill everything as fast as possible. And you have also those times where you have some parts you can skip by killing everything at the same time, which is, always pretty intense. Mission complete first for Melwest, right after Devil Tifa, that starts mission 3, my bad. And Brothermain and Skunkov pretty close to each other. Skunkov, as we could expect, a bit further behind, but not by much so far. It's all going to dwindle down to the final missions, I feel.
Yeah, that's certainly the big swing point. Devil Tifa takes a death. He's planning on taking a death, but not quite. Needs to take out this helicopter first, and now he doesn't have a heavy machine gun to do it. Heavy machine gun, not a great, so you got a great weapon. Pretty much all the weapons are so much more powerful than your pistol, except the heavy machine gun. It's barely more powerful than your pistol. So not too big of a death. If you lose a rocket launcher or a flamethrower or a shotgun, that death just cost you a lot of time. So not the worst that Devil Tifa could take, but he is now behind Mel West, who is into the mini-boss fight, is baiting out the knife attack, and, didn't quite get the second part of it where you want to dodge the knife attack afterwards. It's done fairly easily by jumping. It looks like it should have a really big hitbox the way he swings it back and forth, but you can jump over it pretty nicely and get him into a nice pattern. You can throw in some shots while you're above him as well.
Oh, very nice skip here.
Yeah.
Oh no, I died right after it. Oh.
Okay, so no shotgun, but he does have grenades that can take out these tanks. You want to make sure that you kill tanks with a grenade if you can. But this one just doesn't want to die. He's trying to save his bombs, I suppose. And you can see there why you want to blow them up with a grenade, because a soldier pops out at the top and you have to shoot him, and you can't move the screen until he dies and gets out of the way. So Mel West dropping back here.
Yeah, too bad, because there was a good start of level. Level 3 is probably... Mission 3, my bad, is probably one of the hardest mission of the game, where the Warthog actually loses most of his time. If you watch Tsukumo's time, Mission 3, they take a big death, which costs about up to 15 seconds, I'd say. And it is a scary one, and you want to keep as many grenades as you can, just because, as you can see on screen, you can spam them very, very quickly when you are into a metal slug. You just press down and spam the grenade button, and there is no limit. Usually when you are on foot, you have like 2 grenades on screen limit, and that doesn't exist when you are into a metal slug. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's intended, but Mel West, we saw them dying, so they don't have as many bombs, so they have to do that slowly and painfully, jumping, shooting downward, which takes a lot of time.
Yeah, he's got a rocket launcher, which is going to mitigate this quite a bit, but he just lost it, so he is going to die and get some more bombs. I don't know if it's going to be enough to finish the boss. This might be one of those situations where it is faster simply to die to get more grenades, but the last 2 grenades are just enough to finish it off, so kind of hitting a nice break point there to stem the bleeding a little bit. Skunkoff is also now about to fight this boss, is a little bit a ways back from the leaders, the way we thought we might. This was definitely Skunkoff's weakest game of the bunch. But if you look at it another way, he's almost right there with Mel West. So there it is, third boss down with the Metal Slug strats, using some shots there. As Devil Tifa and Brother Main are well into stage 4. With Brother Main taking 2 deaths.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Early on, there's a tricky jump. You want to land on a crate. If you don't land on that crate, you have like some different ways to jump, but you will usually get caught by a grenade, like they did. You commit suicide, you destroy your metal slug. You are not a metal slug. And it's a fairly short level. Mel West and Brother Main right with each other. Skunkoff a little bit behind, but it's not too bad. And yeah, you have to be careful. Mel West is taking a lot of weird death, I feel. That boss is not too bad if your positioning is not too off, and they let Brother Main take the lead, but Devil Tifa is just an entire mission ahead now.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty much done with Mission 5. This is a pretty weird boss here at the end. It kind of just kills itself once you get to this point. Occasionally you're going to see Devil Tifa tap him here and there. I can't remember if you need to do this to sort of encourage him to die, but
if I
you don't really need to be attacking him. Yeah.
If I recall correctly, it's like Ridley. You want to deal enough damage, but it doesn't die until it catches Samus, and it's pretty much the same thing here. You put the boss to 0 HP, and then he dies whenever he wants, so you have to hit him. But you don't want to hit too much, because anything lags the game out a lot. And the Ultime getting the skip here right away, and the shotgun. You can have either a shotgun, a flame shot, or nothing on that first prisoner of mission 6. And the shotgun is definitely the best, or one of the best weapon, with such a huge area of damage and lots of damage output. Worst of 2 grenades. Sadly, the Ultime died here, letting the prisoner go that had the second shotgun. They will have to clean the bridge with a heavy machine gun. Still a good weapon. Anything but the base pistol is pretty much good enough usually to kill the basic enemies. And they get on that scroller from the top of the bridge, which spawns different prisoner, and the one that interests us is the one with the shotgun, which is the one on the most left, if I recall correctly. I'm sometimes confused with the middle one, but should be the leftmost one. And that prisoner you don't want to free, and if you free him by accident, you want to be sure to catch him up and save the shotgun, because if he goes off screen, he's done. Your shotgun, you will never see the color of it, and you really want it for the final boss.
Yeah, the final boss has a ton of health, and that shotgun is basically all you get for... Well, no, I don't know if it's random or if you wait long enough, but eventually a guy will come along and give you a rocket launcher. But the shotgun is what you want for sure. Very important, big time save, and it's a lot of work to get it there. You can see Double Tifa having to deal with all of these enemies, dodge all of these planes and bombs, and that is not the shotgun. That is the heavy machine gun, so that shotgun is gone.
They got the slug. They wanted to play it safe, but like 2 huge mistakes here. They shoot early. I understand totally. They wanted to kill the enemies, but like like everything happens all together in that game. And they shot early, so that they freed the prisoner by accident without being able to save them. And then it is probably intentional, though. They picked up all the bombs with the slug, so they have currently 19 cannon shots in the slug, which is probably, like, maybe it was intentional. They will get with 35 bombs and 19 cannon shots on the boss, with full health on the slug, which is interesting. Maybe it will work out in the end. We are already at 11:38, 11:40 seconds, and it's a good time for a race. Probably one of the better time we've seen in the UD, but the boss can take a long time if it doesn't go the way you want it to go.
It's just kind of dumping on him here with cannon shots and grenades. He's not sure which resource to use up first. The cannons are only around as long as the slug is around, but the grenades are the higher DPS, so there goes the slug. He still has a heavy machine gun and 8 bombs. It's really unclear just how much damage Double Tifa has done, but I think it was quite a bit. Gets sniped out of the air as he jumps in. 10 more grenades is going to be enough to finish the boss, so that is a nice backup strat from Double Tifa after losing that shotgun, finishing very strong, gonna get a 12, 20 something, maybe a little faster, as the other 3 players are all fairly close to each other. It's a little hard to say with this auto-scroller section, but
we have Brother Main first here with a heavy machine gun and 15 bombs. We have Brother Main in the middle of the bridge with a slug, a shotgun, and I don't know how many bombs. But no HP left on their shotgun, so they want to be very careful here. But yeah, they have 40 bombs, so that's a lot, and that's very nice. And Mel West will have to deal damage with their 30 bombs without like dying too early, because that's 22 bombs gone, sadly. Yeah, Brother Main, they are with 50 bombs now, using all the shotgun shots to be safe, but once again you have to throw the grenades fast enough so you don't die in the process. And they died taking the mine. The landmine killed Brother Main with 50 bombs. That's going to be so much time loss.
Oh man, he really needed that. He could have maybe even caught Mel West if he was able to throw all of those bombs into the boss fight. Skunkoff also does not have a shotgun and has died here at some point. I'm not sure how many. He's got one prisoner left to free and one slug sitting there on the ground. But this is not the situation he wants to be in as well. Melwest's showing off just how painful this boss fight can be when you don't come in with the resources. Still fighting this boss. Here comes the rocket launcher.
Yeah, that's
going to be enough to finish this off.
Okay, nice. Okay. Without taking the rocket, that's just for show. But yeah, 14 minutes. That's going to be a huge lead for Devil Tifa. Middle Slug goes for 3 seconds a point. So yeah, the 2 minutes lead is going to be like 40 points. And Brother Main, they were 20 seconds ahead of Melwest, but they're going to lose that advantage to Devil Tifa. We are qualifying only the top 2 today, so you want to be on either the first or the second place. And yeah, the boss is done, and Skunkoff should be finishing quite soon. The time limit is 16 minutes. And that's not too much, but yeah, a minute to kill the boss, it should be enough for Skunkoff. If the boss stops doing that pattern you never want to see.
Yeah, this is the worst pattern. Skunkoff is actually, if this boss just hurries up and dies, he will be actually very close to his PB for the 3rd game in a row, but it looks like that's not going to be the case as he once again gets the bad pattern. Rocket launcher here, no, it's bombs, so those are great if the boss would just come down, and finally he does come down amid a storm of missiles. Totally undodgeable pattern for Skunkoff. 10 more, it's not going to be enough to finish the boss. He's going to die. Please, this is 100 points.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. Whew.
That was way too close for comfort. Skunkoff will lose about 80 points compared to Devil Tifa. That's going to hurt a lot. They were very close behind, but yeah, yeah, that's exactly the scenario I didn't want it. Although Brotherman and Melwest are very close for the second place, but Devil Tifa is going to take a huge lead, and Skunkoff is going to take like a is going to be behind by a lot. And next game is Trials, and thankfully it's Skunkoff best game, so we'll see how well that goes. But before, just quick look at the standings. Devil Tifa first at 543, Brothermain at 508, and Melwest at 501, and Skunkoff at 457. So yeah, the middle is standing 50 points behind the first place and 50 points ahead of last place.
I can't help but want to root for Skunkoff, the underdog. Actually finished outside the top 8 when we cut the field down to top 8. But LF was unable to continue in the tournament, so we brought in Skunkoff, who then just played out of his mind and qualified in the top 4, and then opened up today with back-to-back PBs. So it was looking like he could maybe pull off this miraculous 9th to 2nd climb through these qualifier sections. Has definitely been putting in a ton of time. I've been tracking the PBs that have come in for games, and I'm seeing a lot of PBs coming in, the week of July 21st to 28th. But this hurts. We can see now that he is 40 points back. Can pick up, according to if he plays his best and everyone else plays their best in trials, he can pick up 10 or 15. But that's going to take a chunk out of this 40-point gap here, but is going to need more. And there's some other games where he is a little shaky, particularly Shovel Knight looms at the end of this decathlon. So he did a fantastic job of getting himself into a good position with those first 2 games, and did a really good job of holding on and picking up at least the 100 for Metal Slug, but is definitely in a tough spot to make a charge. But meanwhile, this important cutoff between 2nd and 3rd, the top 2 qualify for the grand finals. So that is the really important mark here between 2nd and 3rd, and it is just 7 points apart between Brothermain and Melwest. So hopefully, you don't want to see Devil Tifa run away with it, and you don't want to see Skunk Off fall off. But if nothing else, Brother Main and Mel West have done a great job of keeping things nice and close and interesting as we get ready to head into game number 4, which is going to be Trials 2.
Yeah, we're going to do that
yeah.
right after a 10-minute break. The runners have requested their break just so they can like stretch the legs, rest their eyes, and maybe just focus on the next game. So stay tuned. It's going to be Trials 2. Trials 2 is the best game of all 4 runners. Skunkov got a 217 points. Devil Tifa at 215, Melwest at 213, and Brothermain at 200 on the playoff 2 weeks ago. So we'll see how well that goes. So stay tuned. We'll be back at in 10 minutes at 1 p.m. EDT. Hey, we're back for more UD, more speedrun. We left the competition at Skunk Off after Metal Slug being ways behind, but not by too much. Brotherman and Melwest almost tied on the second place, and Devil Tifa first by a good margin. But as we were saying during the break, Trials could be something else. Skunk Off did fantastic 2 weeks ago, and yeah, we could see something.
Yeah, for Trials, everyone has managed to do kind of just okay in the races so far. There's definitely been gaps between PBs. You know, we haven't seen players like Skunkoff today getting a PB in the end is not getting 1 second off. A story about my uncle. I haven't really seen that from anyone in Trials. So if one player, particularly Skunkoff, were to have that kind of run in this game and the others didn't, then it could be a big swing. But on the other hand, evidence seems to suggest that this is a game that I don't know if people are playing it differently compared to when they go for a new PB, or if it's just something about the nature of the game where in order to you're worried about kind of different things maybe when you're racing compared to when you're going for a PB attempt. You're less concerned about the little things, the little optimizations. Make sure that this tire gets down a little sooner. Make sure I get off this ramp a little cleaner. And you're mostly just worried about don't fall down, don't hit my head, don't. And so I'm not sure what it is, but if a player were to really go for it and nail it, then this could be an opportunity for anyone, Skunkoff included, perhaps Skunkoff especially, perhaps, to pick up some points for sure.
It is one of those games where, like the End's Night, you want to play safe, you don't want to die ever, but you will, obviously, and you have to mitigate that. But do you do that by going super safe? And sometimes if you go safe at places where you are supposed to go fast, you will fail because of your safeness. And if you have to, like, it's a good mix of what you want to do. And the category for that game is all of the easy and the medium tracks. No restriction if you find a glitch or a cute way of clearing the track, like, no problem. But it is mostly, well, it is entirely pure trial skill you have to put out. The game is super weird, like it's that weird balance game. You do not control per se the motorcycle, but just its acceleration and your positioning, the positioning of the driver onto that said motorcycles. So you can hop slightly by tilting your body, or by braking and accelerating back and forth. And here we go, first level, construction work, and it's a nice start, except if you bonk your head dramatically like the Ultime just did.
Yeah, this is your introductory level. Has its share of little optimizations. This is one of the levels where you can really afford to really focus on going for the tiny little time saves, which is things like making sure that you land on the down slope of things rather than the upslope. If you crash into an upslope, it's going to kill a lot of your energy that you had going, that you could preserve if you were to smoothly transition down a slope. It's things like getting your back tire down a little sooner. Your bike works in game the way an actual bike works, and then only the gas is powering the back tire. So if your back tire's up in the air, even if you're hitting the accelerator, it's not doing anything. So you want to be landing with your back tire whenever you can. It also just helps transfer your momentum in a nice way, as opposed to losing it with the bike bouncing around whenever you come down. So those two things will count for actually a whole bunch of time. and but probably not as much as not having to restart from a checkpoint. Brother Main barely getting enough height to hop over that gap. I was really worried he was going to have to restart from a checkpoint the moment it left my mouth, because I am tired of cursing these players, but defying me, and I am very happily.
Here we go.
Oh my goodness! It had to. All right, let's just move on. Brother Main's moving on. Everyone's moving on.
You just gotta keep going whenever that happens. That's why you see a lot of restart to checkpoint. Sometimes a runner will rush past a checkpoint, see that they don't have enough momentum to pass the next obstacle, and just hit restart right away. The game is nice enough, the respawn is instantaneous, and you will just be able to clear the obstacles fairly quickly, even if you have to restart. All the runners are tied. We can see them on the same slope, and then on that loop. The fastest strat is actually not to take the entire loop, but just like you can thread the needle and make it without doing the huge detour, but it's quite hard. And here we go. Yeah, so far, as we could have expected, it's they're all tied together. Skunkov is barely ahead, but maybe like having to slow down here will put him in last position, and that's how it's going to go. And for all the easy tracks, I feel, and once we are getting to the medium difficulty tracks, the difficulty is going to ramp up quite a lot, and that's when the players are going to have to take some more intense decision. Do you go fast or do you go safe? And sometimes it's hard to tell what's the best bet.
I haven't seen anyone opt for fast over safe in this race. I mean, obviously it's like a spectrum, and everyone lands somewhere on there, but everyone skews safe in this game. I haven't seen anyone going for some of the really crazy stuff where you flip your bike in just such a way as to get over an obstacle rather than go under it, and even in less dramatic ways. I haven't seen people approach jumps in certain jumps as aggressively as they could. Everyone seems to prefer to focus on safety, don't die, and win the race through consistency. Which is maybe just kind of something this game brings out in the players. You never really feel totally in control of the bike or your character in this game, and so there's a tendency to for players to feel like they want to hold on to at least what little control they have. So if they can slow down somewhere and give themselves a better chance of making a jump, then they will. And that's just kind of where everyone is at with this game. I don't know if the players will get more comfortable and start to do more aggressive things as UD goes on. Certainly there's no more time left to do that. For this July tournament, this is the run for these players. We can see Devil Tifa is our leader, but not by much. Everyone on the same level here with Where's the Ground, and aptly named. Yeah, look at this. There we go. There's the bottom as we nice smooth landing into the end.
Yeah, with a very fast menuing, almost caught me. I thought that restarted from the beginning. Where's the Ground is one of the longest level. It's a minute long for the world record compared to about 30 seconds for all the other easy tracks. So it took a long time to clear, and it's one of those where we saw a lot of issues earlier during the UD, but the Ultima just had very clear and smooth landing all over, with very neat trajectories where when you land, both your tires hit the ground simultaneously and you just never stop, which is what you want to aim for. And very clean level. The Ultima in the lead, but not by much. Kankov is actually very close and catching up with some fairly aggressive strats. I feel like they're just going a little bit faster everywhere, but had that huge death that slowed them down 4 levels ago already.
And looks like things are pretty even between Brother Main and Mel West. Both of them not too far behind Skunkov, and all three not too far behind Devil Tifa. Certainly close enough that things could change over the course of the next few tracks, especially because we're getting closer to those medium tracks. I think that was it. Actually, I think this might be too many tires.
As you can see, the level start with a lot of tires, and there are too many of them. And the easy levels never see those weird pipes with little bit higher ends that are actually way harder to clear than you saw. Little jumps here, very nicely done by Double Tifa. And yeah, you can see already that the level design just is way more hectic with those angles and those slopes you have to fall or to jump off. Very nice, Double Tifa clearing that level. Skunk off at the end, Buttermain in the middle. Like, this is very, very close between all those 4 runners, and I'm not too surprised, but I'm as partial as I am. I want Skunkoff to take the lead right now, just so he arrives on Sunday with tomorrow with just better confidence that he can catch up and that he does not just come here for the show, because they've all 4 have worked very hard on all those 10 games, and you can see it right now. It just shows.
Absolutely. Skunkoff has been gaining ground here and there in little pieces on Devil Tifa all throughout the past, I don't know, maybe 10 tracks or something, and is now quite close, though he tips over just a little bit there as Devil Tifa finds the top of the level in a way that he kind of didn't really wish he hit. This is a long journey with these double backflips here. And so that was that's one of the more costlier ways you can lose time. There's some pretty bad ways to get stuck and feel like you're not stuck, and so you don't reset, and then you find out, no, I actually am stuck, and those are kind of the worst mistakes you can make in this game, as Devil Tifa is going across these pipes with the rims on the end. Thankfully, they're tilted towards us, so we don't have to navigate those rims in this level just yet, but they will start to pop up in the next level, Boulder Dash, which is where I think as much of a jump as there is between easy and medium, I think Boulder Dash is another jump. Yeah. We can see navigating these boulders here, some pipes later on. They're all very tricky. Each little thing here can trip you up, can take away enough of your speed such that your next jump doesn't quite get you there, and then you find yourself resetting over something that seemed like you were doing it perfectly fine. The
race between Skunkoff and Devil Tifa is just picking up. Skunkoff finally caught up with Devil Tifa. They are on the same exact jump, and that part, it doesn't look like much, but those few angles, those few steps are super tough to get past. Skunkoff barely making it past the checkpoint. Very nice.
And then preserving the speed so that he lands on that pipe. Actually had too much speed, couldn't kill it off, and slipped off. So but Devil Tifa getting caught up on some of these pipes.
That part is way too hard.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of room to get your tire up and over those pipes, so that is definitely tricky. Skunkoff caught up, took the lead, and then dropped back all in the same level.
This is Pipe Dreams, one of those few levels with animated elements. The later games on the Trial series will have a lot of dynamic platforms and moving platforms and stuff, but nothing like that on Trials 2, where it's all about precision. All the momentum is given by your own engine. Just you do not have to rely on anything in the level. It's all pure skill. Double defense Skunkoff right on the same checkpoint. Skunkoff saving time, not landing on the ground here, staying on the plank, and it's all like small tiny optimization, but Skunkoff took the lead. You can see how little the tricks, the optimization are, but it's all about like not losing momentum, going a little bit further, keeping your engine going, and this is super close. Melwest and Bottomane are right behind them, though. This race is something, and Devil Tifa fell down here again, sadly, and Skunkoff is taking the lead by almost 5 seconds there.
Wow, what a big overtaking here of Skunk Off is going to be the first one into the second to last level under construction. You can see there's some things here that are, just lying pointing towards the ground, just kind of leaning against things when they probably were supposed to be pointed up. So the level's kind of unfinished, but it is still beatable. So we're going to do our best to navigate this last environment. Skunkoff didn't like his position at the bottom of the fall there, came off with way too much spin. And this one I don't think is going to work either, so is getting caught with this kind of a weird part to get stuck. And there's no checkpoint down here either, so he needs to make sure that jump goes well, and it does.
And yeah, they will clear the level, get to the final one, the final exam first. It was an interesting race between Skunkoff and Devil Tifa that completely let Brothermain and Melwest outside almost of our commentary, because that was so crazy. Devil Tifa with the lead, Skunkoff will beat Under Construction in a couple of steps here, but Brothermain and Melwest are catching up, and that final level can be tricky, but since the beginning, Devil Tifa made very few mistakes, just played it safe.
Skunk Off into the double backflips. Devil Tifa sort of one checkpoint ahead with this very cautious ride. Make sure you don't bump your head there. Your head is your hitbox. A back tire just collided in a way he was not happy with. Again, here comes Skunk Off slowly rolling into the checkpoint, now climbing up the very same hill that Devil Tifa just finished going over. My favorite part here with this really tricky drive backwards off the ceiling moment, and then now this final sequence of jumps. This lands in the middle, but he manages to make it work. Hits the can, but also manages to hit the other can on the way down in just such a way as to fling himself over.
And Skunkoff is going to take the lead right at the end! Oh, Devil Tifa, second place with Melwest and Brothermain on the same final level. This is a crazy race. It's not going to equate to a lot of points, but Skunkoff barely making it in first place right at the end. Final checkpoint. Oh god.
Man, the last level has some. You can go fast if you know what you're doing, and Skunkoff did. He made a charge there, as Devil Tifa wasn't doing anything wrong. Was doing a lot of things right, but just done a little more right by Skunkoff, who is going to take the lead in the game where he has the better time. It's going to feel good to post up the strongest time, even if he was probably hoping to get more points out of this game than he did. Melwest, nice finish to that very difficult section. Brothermain, who is battling with Melwest for that second place position. This is very important. Trying to get this final sequence of jumps. Looks to be going for a back tire collision into
he broke his bike,
flip.
but got the checkpoint. They are 7 points from each other, so that's 21 seconds in trial, and that's probably what we are going to see. We'll see how well that goes, but crazy race. Oh my god, we knew that Trials 2 was going to be super close between the two, but between all four actually, but wow, I did not expect that.
I was saying earlier that players weren't really getting too close to their PBs in past races of Trials on UD, but it seems Devil Tifa's 13:29, which is actually 5 seconds behind Skunkoff. It seemed quite a bit closer on stream, but with variations in stream delay and whatnot, that's just how it goes. The final times come in, we see that 5 second difference, but this is actually a PB for Devil Tifa in Trials. Couldn't be by too much, but it is a fantastic time.
It's 2:25 for both Skunkoff and Devil Tifa. Brothermain Force with 2:12. That's just crazy, because you could, with the craziest in-game strat, go for 11 minutes on Trials 2, but the best known time for the category is way worse than that. It's 12:36, so we are barely 50 seconds behind best known time.
for Skunkov in a race with clearly some smaller mistakes early on and just better strats than Devil Tifa all over the place, but Devil Tifa playing just a little bit safer made it with dying a little bit less, and it was so close between those two. But yeah, as you were saying, there is like a spectrum, like a range between safe and fast, and those players chose like barely two different approach, and it worked out the same at the end, which is like pretty cool to see.
Brother Main and Mel West, their battle continues for the second position. Brother Main has it now, but only by 3 points. Picked up a ton of time with the best, I think, the End Is Nigh run we've seen on stream in the UD, and then just kind of matching blow for blow with Mel West, losing a bit of time in Metal Slug, losing a bit of time in Trials, and it's becoming an interesting battle. And that gap between third and fourth, Skunkov certainly made up a bunch of ground. Devil Tifa seems to be pulling further away, I mean, you know, even if he comes out of the first 5 games with a healthy advantage, I wouldn't say he's got it locked up yet, but he's doing everything he can to make it look that way. But between the other 3, certainly very close, obviously, between Brother Main and Mel West, and Skunkov as well, through some of the troublesome games, and with that really strong Trials performance, is showing that he's right there with those guys. If something happens to one or both, he's going to be right there, and we could see something pretty crazy happen, and maybe it'll happen in Castlevania Aria of Sorrow.
So just to get you a little bit excited, something that Devil Tifa said right before the tournament said was, I have only 30 minutes to de-rust on the RNG manips. So I hope he was kidding, because that doesn't bode too well for him for the race. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is a Metroidvania where every single enemy can drop a unique soul. Those souls can be super weak, useless, or super strong. Obviously, in a speedrun, you are going to aim to drop those souls, but the catch is you can manipulate the RNG well enough to get always the drops you want, but it is still like very precise. So if you haven't worked on those, it's going to be difficult to wing it. So we'll see. We have like at least 3 or 4 critical spots. One is right in the beginning. At 1 minute and 20 seconds, you want to drop the Creaking Skull Soul, which will make at least 2 bosses right after that easier. And a lot of strats for navigating the rooms rely on that soul, and we'll see how well it goes. I do hope all the runners start with just a perfect drop right off the bat, so the race, you know, it's always worrisome when one runner is like about 40 seconds behind and has to catch up because it's hard to focus on them. So we'll see how well it goes, but Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is all about drops, boss fights, but also overall movements and optimizations like almost any Metroidvania, and that's why we always try to put one of the game of that genre in the UD selections.
Yeah, it really does demand a lot from the players. It's up there with Shovel Knight as one of the most demanding games on the list, and the added wrinkle of having to memorize these weird sort of dances and rituals to manipulate the RNG to get these soul drops is really cool. That this was something that the players are being tested on. This is not something, you know, not a lot of speedrun competitions will incorporate that sort of strategy, and we're seeing Mel West showing it off there with a rather particular set of attacks and movements on this creaking skull. Rather, it is really a treat to see all the things that players have to learn to compete, and a lot of them all being put together in this game as the race starts. The players don't have their backdash, which is a huge movement tech option in this game. It's supposed to sort of kind of be a one-time use, get you out of danger thing in this game, but anything that makes your character go faster, a speedrunner is going to find a way to make it look pretty silly in their quest to go ever faster. And I actually didn't think we would see too much of it from the UD players because it is such an advanced technique of turning around, backdashing forwards, and then jumping out of it so that you don't have that stopping animation, and repeating the process. You can get your speed going just a little bit faster with some of these backdash moves, but you need to be so precise with it, or you're just going to lose time.
So we saw some minor difference between the players, but Brothermain gets first sleeping here, and they will be trying to get the drop first. So what happens is when you do sleep and restart on the same room, the RNG resets, so you know exactly where the RNG is at, like the random number generator does exactly starts off exactly at the same point, and then it changes depending on your actions and the enemy actions. So if you do exactly the same thing, all the enemies will react the same, and you will get the Creaking Skull drop like everybody did. The only difference between all those 4 players is Brothermain got the baseline at the start of the run. If you kill the first zombie at the 43rd frame when you enter the room, you will get a pretty cool weapon that helps to kill the Manticore. But it's not too much difference between the players. Devil Defy got a weird stream issue there. I hope they don't stop for long. And yeah, we are off into Dracula's castle, where Dracula's not here, sadly, to greet us. And Brothermain takes a weird route where he does not grab the first potion. Oh, he forgot about it. He goes back. That's bad. That's it. The big time loss you don't want to take so early, and that shows that sometimes you can be a bit rusty with the game in the UD. Takes a detour again. Takes a lot of hits. Wow, Brothermain has to come to his senses because that was a lot of time to lose so early.
Yeah, he is the strongest player in this game of the bunch. By a little bit, not too much, but a noticeable amount, and he by far did the best last weekend. I guess it would be the weekend before, but just a very strong player of this game. So a very uncharacteristic mistake from him. Before the race started, we were talking about Devil Tifa having to derust some of the manipulations. So. That was the kind of thing, the kind of mistake I could maybe see Devil Tifa making in light of that information. So I'm not sure what this says about where Brothermain is at. He did absolutely fantastic last weekend and came out with the best The End Is Nigh run at the start of today. Has been playing very well ever since. And this is the first time where I've seen Brothermain kind of firmly in last place here. I guess it's not by too much. Devil Tifa's door closing at pretty much the same point here, but yeah, it is very surprising. Mel West is going to be the first one into the boss fight. Has that Creaking Skull out, does a ton of damage to this first boss. It actually is pretty tricky to get your melee attacks in, but thankfully the Creaking Skull does so much damage at this point that it's not too important.
Okay, I'm always having some difficulties with the slash cancel, where you barely jump and slash at the same time, but thankfully the Creaking Skull deals so much damage so early in the game, so that's not a problem. Brothermain getting to Manticore finally when Mel West actually exit the room with Skankoff. Devil Tifa is done also with the game, so Brothermain is in last position, even if he had the base load, and should have the better fight against Manticore, but it's just having trouble here. Finally makes it as Mel West gets to the study, where we will grade the great armor to get our double jump. Basically the route all revolves around being able to go fast while still doing some only mandatory stuff. So This is all the normal route early on. The only difference would be that you would have to go there. You would have to have gathered the flying armor, but that's not too much of a difference. And except that it's all just movement optimization and knowing how to move and how to drop the Creaking Skull, obviously. But right after that, the route is going to diverge greatly from what you're supposed to do, and Melwest taking the safety heal there does not save, but goes full health on the next couple of rooms.
Yeah, that is it's a nice middle ground option, I guess. If you're gonna detour to the save room, it might be worth it to save in some situations in case you die. I definitely expect the players to be taking the save in a couple key locations, particularly death, like you said. The route is going to diverge quite a bit, and the big thing is detouring over to the clock tower to fight death early. So that is where you are vastly underpowered, sort of the first time you're vastly underpowered compared to the bosses that you are fighting, and that is definitely a scary fight. So there is a save room right outside, the way there is for most boss rooms, and that's the first time I expect to see all the players heal and save. You're also probably low on health coming through the clock tower. There's a lot of things that you either purposely or accidentally get hit by in the clock tower. The Great Night fight has gone by for most of players. I talked through it. I didn't even realize it was a boss fight, but it is.
Yeah,
you just kind of crouch there and let the Creaking Skull do its thing.
And we saw Melwest drop one super interesting soul. When you use it, it's a blue soul, so it's an active one. You have to use it. It's not a yellow soul, which would be a passive upgrade. So you have to use it, and the text is increase strength by 120%. So strength, 1 point of extra strength is 1 point of extra damage, which can equates to a lot. That's why we are going to see plus 16 strength souls later on. But sadly, the Great Armor Souls, also so great on paper, is worthless because it drains your mana instantly. Like, you just barely have time while using it to deal like two or three hits, which is a shame. So the Creaking Skull is so much better, but the first time I got it, I really felt like it was a crazy good one, and when actually it's not that good. Skunkov having troubles on that specific jump here, while Devil Tifa is making it with no problem. Skunkov has to deal with the tiny devil here and finally makes the jump. Brothermain still in last place and Melwest still in first place, which is worrisome for Brothermain because we are only qualifying the top 2, and currently Brothermain is in second and Melwest is in third place. So have to be careful if you want to leave the day confident, because we are doing the 5 other games on tomorrow, starting at the same time, 11 AM EDT. It's going to be, just something to worry a little bit more about if you fail on one of your strongest game.
Yeah, it's definitely something you don't want hanging over your head going into game 2. So all the players are going to be doing their best here in game number 5. We've got Devil Tifa is, I think, the furthest one ahead, if I remember these castle late. No. Melwest is down in the underground section already, doing that nice jump into the platform. If you touch the corner of the platform, you can actually land on it. It's just a little it's you kind of have to actually move into the platform. If you just go straight up, I think it actually won't do it, but it's easier than I'm making it sound. Certainly, you just kind of double jump at the corner and it'll work, and it's technically not intended. It's the only thing stopping you from coming here at this point, and it's not going to stop these guys. So Melwest is going to be the first one into the floating gardens. And it's where things, it's because you're not supposed to be here this early, and because you're generally not fighting anything or leveling up or grabbing armor or anything, it's where you're really vulnerable. So it's not so bad here in the gardens. There's not too many enemies and there's a lot of space, so we can avoid all of the enemies. But In not too long, we're going to be into the clock tower, and that is where there is much less space, much more enemies. They move in more unpredictable and annoying ways, and generally it's just a really tricky place.
Yeah, we are way too early to get there, to be honest, in the game. Like, if you play through the game casually, and everything hurts like a truck. Plus, you have the favorite enemies of any Castlevania game, which are probably the Medusa heads. So they move into very weird, with very weird patterns. You have to understand their behavior, and your HP count is very tight at that point. So you want to be sure to just navigate the rooms perfectly, and then you'll you know, have some leeway here and there, but mostly you want to be prepared for the boss fight that's coming up. And if you don't do too well here, you can, you know, die early, but usually you are not too scared with dying in Castlevania Eye of Sorrow. It's more like time loss that adds up everywhere. And Melwest has a good lead now, so he will probably still go heal before the boss fight, I'd say.
Yeah, even though his clock tower was pretty much flawless, avoided all the enemies, took a couple hits on spikes, but that was intentional. It's faster to just kind of drop down through the spikes on the right side than go all the way around the wheel. But you really want every single health point you can get for this boss fight that Melwest is in. He got the Mistletoe Sword, Holy Element, just happens to be the weakness of the boss that you're about to fight. When you're vastly underpowered, finding a new weapon that targets the weakness of the super tough boss you're about to fight is kind of a godsend, so we're going to be putting it to good use. You don't get too many opportunities to slash cancel, because this scythe you need to hit is generally always off the ground, and there's a lot of things you need to dodge. A fantastic first phase from Melwest, very easy to get hit by the scythe that just materialize out of thin air, and is now moving on to the second phase, where you do get some more opportunities to get some slash cancels in whenever you don't need to be dodging this gigantic double-bladed scythe.
Yeah, the body of the boss itself does not hit you, but the scythe hitbox is so big. You have to take a lot of time, and you have to understand exactly where you sit in the room where the scythe does go all the way around, because depending if you are on the leftmost or rightmost part of the room, you will take some very different time to it will take some very different time to circle around, and the dodge timing, it can be differ vastly, so you have to know exactly what you're doing. Melwest going into the menu to heal up, and then menu again, sadly losing a lot of time, and finishing the boss in first place. Very nice. That boss fight is super tricky, and it's when you are learning the speedrun, it's the first like gatekeeper, really be understanding well enough the boss fight, and it's still a scary moment, even when you're experienced with the speedrun.
Yeah, this boss is actually so hard that because this was announced as game number 2, this boss fight was kind of solely responsible for a couple people deciding that they didn't want to continue with Ultime Decathlon. They just couldn't reliably beat this ridiculously difficult boss as part of the route. And while I'm sad that people kind of tapped out on it, we can see that these players have definitely stuck with it and have definitely done a fantastic job of dealing with this threat. They are now moving on with the upgrade they've found. This is Skula, I think it's called. Yep. It's I mean, they've also got a nice soul to fight things with. They were not going to put it to use until quite a bit later with the death soul, but Skula is going to let us traverse underwater. I don't know why that in particular has anything to do with death or the clock tower. There's some water here, and out we go down through the drain. But it is necessary to progress, and it's going to get us going towards our next destination, which is going to include some more manipulations in not too long. So it's going to be another tense moment for the players as they try to get these very important, very precise manipulations.
Yeah. We get the menuing to buy a lot of potions, so we sell pretty much everything as we saw what Devil Fat just do, and then you buy the war fatigues, which are just perfect armor for the entire speedrun, and a lot of potions. Potions just fuel your mana points and your HP when you are in trouble, and you use them constantly. That's why your menuing has to be spot on. And Devil Defend, they are losing a lot of time on that menuing. I think Brothermen are going to almost pass them just right here. So tough call. Brothermen actually losing a lot of time here, also doing some quick math, trying to figure out what they can buy and what they have to skip apparently. And as you're mentioning, Skula is one of the few mandatory souls to beat the game. You just have to have the Giant Bat, Skula, and the Malfast that allows to double jump, and that's it. You can go anywhere you want when you have those 3 souls for the speedrun, but we are going to have to collect 2 extra souls, which are going to be the Flame Demon and the Succubus, just so we can get to the true ending. There's no bad ending category in that game. Every speedrun finishes with the Chaos fight, which is good because the good ending has that Julius fight, which is probably my favorite, to be honest, and pretty happy we see the entire game.
West is showing us off the underground reservoir, or the later sections of it anyway, with this kind of almost ghostly pale caverns. There's some tricky enemy placements here. There's a really horrible room that used to be part of the route that thankfully we don't go to anymore. Leads to a super powerful sword that I'm sure the players are not thankful that they don't get to pick up anymore. Really tricky room with the Mandrake. Melwest gets out of there in time. You have to do the backdash movement to go fast enough to not get hit by the scream of the Mandrake, which does a ton of damage. So anyone who goes in there without actually killing the skeleton pulling up the Mandrake is banking on their ability to reliably do those backdashes. It's pretty gutsy. Melwest went for it and got it. And with some more backdashes and some more damage boosts, he's ready for this next manipulation.
So those Triton guys drop Yellow Soul, so passive ability that gives plus 16 strength. It's a lot, that's plus 16 flat damage, and you will just use it all the time from the point you got it. So, and then we go down to the cemetery here, where we are going to encounter our first and only Flame Demon. There are very few Flame Demons in the entire castle, and thankfully there is one not too far of the way, so we are going to go there, kill it, but we have to set up a manip to drop the soul. But also, since it's so great, we want to drop the sword. They're hiding, I guess, and here it goes, Leviathan, and without sleeping we are going to see an attempt at dropping the soul. Here we go, perfect from Melwest. So all he did since he slept, since he used the sleep function, was to drop both items, which is like amazing if you think about it. Like the more things you have to reliably manipulate, the harder it gets, and that's a double manip. And we get later on a triple manip where with like just one sleep you want to drop 3 different items, which is completely crazy. And Devil Tifa gets it also. Skunkoff is at the start of the manip, get the Leviathan, and then he's going to try to get the soul with a fairly different setup. Failed it, sadly.
No soul.
Yep.
Okay.
And has to thankfully apparently they know a backup. Brothermain dropped the soul instead of the weapon, which is pretty weird. And apparently they choose to ignore the sword, which I totally understand. Now they're going to restart, sadly. So more time loss for Brother Main here. They really want that sword for both the Balor fight and the Graham Jones fight. So they're going to start all over again. While Devil Tifa and Melwest make good progression into the arena. One of the most difficult areas of the game at that point. Everything kills you so fast. You have to dodge everything in a controlled way.
Yeah, those blue skeletons in particular, the Nova skeletons, absolutely must be dodged. If you get hit by their attack, it hits like a truck. Also hitting like a truck is Balor, squeezing that giant bat and basically just throws his fists out here. As long as the fists stay in sync with each other, this fight, it's not too bad to dodge them. They mostly get out of sync if you get caught outside of the center of the screen when he just decides to attack, basically. So you want to minimize your trips out to the side only when you have to dodge an attack. And it looks like the first phase is going very well for Mel West and is moving into the second phase now. This is really tricky to make sure that your jumps are spaced and timed correctly so that you always get your hits in while jumping over the flame waves. And we didn't get a very good look at it, but it looks like it went great for Mel West, who is already done with the fight, moving on with that giant bat soul. Devil Tifa's turn to go with this boss fight is really relentless here with the hits. Creaking Skull damage now being slightly out-damaged by the Levitane and the Triton Soul, but still pitching in for some pretty good work here.
Yeah, about time, like halfway through the run, the Creaking Skull, the first minute and a half drop, is still doing good work. Oh, Devil Tifa being got up off guard there by the flames, but still makes it. And Skankov is starting the fight as like a few... Now, Brother Main is starting the fight as Skunkov gets to the second phase, so that's getting very close between those two. And Skunkov being the underdog of that tournament, obviously, we all want to see them succeed. They will grab the giant bat soul that allows them to fly, and being able to fly in such a big Metroidvania game is always interesting. It allows for some cool movement strats and also to finally get to the top floor where the famous stair plus Dracula's chamber are, but sadly no Dracula to be seen on Eye of Sorrow, which is weird for a Castlevania game when you think about it.
Well, Dracula is here somewhere. I wonder where he could be. We'll find out in just a little bit. If you've been watching Ultimate Decathlon, me being coy here is dumb because you know exactly where Dracula is. But whatever. We'll go with this narrative. For now, Mel West is the first one to reach the top floor. There's the section where you need the bat in order to progress, and he's got it now. Tried to take a hit off the gargoyle instead of the guard, ended up getting hit by both, so is pretty low on health, and now I'm not sure what he's trying to pick up a kill on a gargoyle. Okay,
I'm not
sure.
Didn't
want it chasing after him.
Yeah, either it's a genius move involving leveling up, because we are getting like a three kill manip, and if you get a level up, the little sparkles around your characters change the RNG, which is pretty weird. Oh, careful with those lubricants. Those are crazy, scary guys.
They're just chasing him further and further away from where he wants to go. There we go.
That's
wow.
What's better.
Really good job getting them out of the way. Really could have kept going, but he wants to keep his magic, I think.
Wow. Okay, they're going to use equip Balor, heal up, get all their MP full, because now we want the Muramasa, the Sword, the Succubus Soul, and the Red Minotaur Soul. Here we go for the first drop, Muramasa. We're going to change the soul we are using the wings. Sadly, mistake in the soul equipment here. He needed a giant bat, so that's not going to work, I think. But he's still trying. He's not using the correct weapon also.
Oh boy.
That's...
This manipulation not going well.
Yeah,
what
I
do you
wonder...
do in this situation? Do you just bail immediately?
You just reset. So they are going to have to start all over again. So getting the correct soul, the correct loadout, and drop another Muramasa. And that's actually pretty fine because they're going to be able to sell it, get some more potions for the next two boss, for the final 2 boss fights. So that's not too bad, but still, you don't want that to happen.
And that also means things are going to even up here quite a bit. Brother Main and Mel West are now tied in 3rd. Skunkoff going for the manipulation, gets it, but he kind of charged off to the right and fell down. I don't know if that's going to throw things off here, but he's going to go for it. There's the magic bat.
2 whiffs. Oh, yeah, the soul.
All right.
Falling does not alter the RNG. Your movement doesn't matter too much. What matters is enemy behavior and hits. So you can jump, you can fall, you can move, but backdashing, whiffing, hitting, and having like an enemy hit you, leveling up, all those change the RNG. So there's like a nice trade-off. Devil Diva failed the triple manip, so they went on another location to get the Red Minotaur, which allows actually to Brother Main to get to the first place, while Mel West, Skunkoff, and Devil Diva are saving exactly at the same time. Skunkoff taking its time to switch the gear, the loadout, but it's very, very close, and we see the Red Minotaur finally. That's a way better soul than the Creaking Skull for a damage assist.
Yeah, it chews up your entire mana bar more or less when you use it, but it also just kicks out a ton of damage. So if you've got the potions, you can just refill that mana bar and just let loose with this axe for a ton of damage. But we are limited with a certain amount of money, and that means we're limited with a certain amount of potions, and so we're limited with a certain amount of Minotaur soul, and it will be used, with not too much discretion in these boss fights. But yeah, you can't go full Red Minotaur, or it's gonna hurt. So Brother Main is now going to work with the Muramasa on the second phase here. The previous route used the Claim Soleus, and it made this fight so much easier than it is with the Muramasa. You need to be much higher up in order to get the 2 hits with the Muramasa, so you end up doing these really big jumps, leaving yourself vulnerable in the air. Really, it's the same fight, really. You're just jumping and attacking, dodging left and right in between the hands, but it does require you to do it for longer. It's a little more precise, and Brother Main had no troubles with it, and also remembered to equip the correct souls so he does not accidentally trigger the bad ending.
Devil Diva with the better fight got out in first place. They are going to try for the hole-in-one. They're very nice, got there. Was no problem. Getting the Hippogriff there. That's soul we just get for an easier time in movement, but also to be able to grab the Kaladbolg, the dark sword that will be used to kill Julius. Every weapon has an element associated, so you can go fire, water, and also holy or dark, and we are going to kill a vampire killer, so it kind of makes sense to have a dark element weapon. And we see Brother Main and Devil Diva very close to each other. Brother Main chooses to take a detour here to get the Vijaya, to have some extra cash to buy some more potions. So we'll see. Oh, and Devil Diva actually forgot about it and goes back to grab it. No. Route mistakes everywhere for all of them, actually. Like Brother Main and Devil Diva got so super long shopping session earlier, and then weird choices, to be honest, but whatever works. And in the end, all those runners are very close to each other. Skunkoff is a little bit behind, but not by much.
Mal West also in this menu, trying to sell and buy as fast as you can. This menu is just another thing that this game tests of these players. It's certainly nothing compared to an RPG, but don't underestimate how difficult it can be to properly speedrun a menu. There's a lot of inputs that you're making before you get the visual feedback of what you're doing, right? Like you should be pressing buttons and moving cursors before you even see the list of text that pops up, and you should know exactly how many squares down you need to go to find the war fatigues or whatever you need to buy. So players often don't realize just how much hesitation they're making in menus and how much time there is to save. And so, in the equip menus as well as the shop menus, time to be gained, time to be lost, probably pales in comparison to the time lost if you die to a boss. We are into the Julius fight now. Brother Main is in first, going to be the first one into the fight. Khalid Bolg dealing that increased damage with the Dark Element, and not a great start for Brother Main. Has taken 3 hits early on.
Yeah, so you have to be very, very careful because Julius hurts a lot. His behavior depends on your movement. He will home at you, like, if you crouch, he's going to crouch. Whip at you. Every 4 hits is going to have a stagger animation and then go invulnerable. So you want to count those 4 hits, to know exactly where you are, and have that little dance going on. He has a lot of HP, and you don't deal that much, and you have very little HP yourself, so it can be very scary, and you can lose a lot of time if you take it too safe. But you also would lose more time if you would you were to die. So it's all a trade-off, but it went fairly well for Brother Main that gets to the second phase first. Julius has only 2,000 HP left, but yeah, he has the full gear of a vampire killer now. The cross, the axes, the holy water, and everything hurts a lot. But Death makes a good quick walk of him. Careful, no HP left. Using a lot of potions here. Using some Minds Up also to get more Death sights going. And then takes another hit. Brother Main with a clutch finish here.
Ooh. Okay. He is done. 84 health. It was a very fast fight from Melwest, or maybe just a not so fast fight from Brother Main. He certainly, he was dishing out the damage, but he was taking a lot in return. He had to menu, I think, 3 times in total, counting the menu at the end. So even if you've got the potions to spare, it takes time to get in there and use them. But we've actually, I was going to push the narrative of who is Dracula, but I forgot. It's you. You are Dracula. But you don't know it, and you need to become Dracula in order to face your inner Dracula chaos energy and beat the bad guy. So you need to equip those souls in the Gram fight that embody Dracula, Flame Demon, Succubus, Giant Bat, and that's what triggers the game to continue into the Julius fight. And now the players are hunting down the chaotic Dracula energy in the Chaos Realm. It is this lovely washed out final sequence of stitched together rooms from the castle with all the toughest enemies. And it's not the easiest thing to navigate. You've got the Hippogriff and you've got the Black Panther, but they make you go very fast, and it's very hard to control. So there's a lot of crashing into ceilings and things that can be avoided if you were being very precise, but most players tend to just kind of crash through everything. Brother Main crashing through one too many things, actually had to open up the menu and heal once again. I think he's going to be okay in terms of health total, in terms of number of potions, but he's losing little bits of time opening the menu.
Yeah, each time you want to go, you have to go to the menu, you are losing time, especially if it takes you, a bit more time than necessary. It's the switching from the souls is actually very tricky because the order the menu goes into is very weird. The last you use go on the top right, which is, it's not the same order all the time, and if you switch wrongfully, it's going to go even weirder all the time. So Taking a lot of hits, but the main be careful because that fight can be very tricky. First orb soul here is done, only 70 HP left. He's not going to heal. He's healing. Okay. The stutter here just got me. 70 HP. Yeah. Okay, no, you have to heal now. Better. And that's the first phase done for bottom lane, but Melwest is very close behind. Skunkov did not start the fight yet, but this is going to be a close finish. We are already at 35 minutes, and I feel like the players are doing very well, but maybe a little bit more rusty than they were 2 weeks ago.
We saw some really great times from the first 2 weeks ago. Maybe they just can't all be that great, I'm not sure. But these have been some respectable times, and you know, from my perspective here watching them, they've done a really good job of keeping it close, which in some ways is preferable to playing well. But I'm sure they'll prefer to have just gone faster if they could. The Red Minotaur Soul being put to great work here in the final boss fight, hits all these targets. These eyes are not strictly required to be beaten to damage the boss, but they increase the damage you do to the boss by a fair bit, so it's actually worth it to take them out. And Red Minotaur Soul does a great job of doing that. And now it's just the final few hits. The Creaking Skull has been brought out for Brother Main. And yeah, there's some scary moments if players choose to wait to open that menu a little too long. It's possible to take from one hit into another and get comboed so that you die before you can even get to the menu. Brother Main, it's not going to happen to him. He's the first one to finish, followed very shortly behind by Devil Tifa and then Mel West. So it's going to be all around the 35-36 minute mark for these three players. And that was a great race.
Yeah, very close race all over. Melwest took the lead for the most part of the run, and Bottom Lane caught up later on with some better fights, but very, very good job from all the players. Skunkov is going clearly to be the underdog for today, but there are like 5 other for tomorrow, I would say. There are 5 other games to go, and some of the better game for Skunkov Trials is gone, but the only very scary moment for them is going to be Shovel Knight. It's going to be the last game of the 10 on tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be interesting. Skunkov finishing the first phase of Chaos, getting to the very hectic, chaotic second phase here. You want to use the your Minds Up and then get to the Raid Minotaur on the center, so it hits all the eyes twice, and then you just spam that because it deals so much damage. It's just worth it.
You also want to make sure you keep your health total high. Skunkov went into the beginning of the fight with really not a lot of health. You can see him landing some hits on the middle, that he's actually dealing only 1 damage as long as these eyes are alive. If you've got the Claim Solace, you can brute force it a little bit, but with the Muramasa, just doesn't have the damage, so these eyes really need to go so we can really get some decent damage in. The eyes are dead, but the Minotaur is still good damage on the middle, so we'll burn every last potion we have to get those hits in. Looked like he only got 1 off that last axe, and that's a shame. You miss out on that big 270 chunk of damage. Look how many hits you need. 12 or 14 hits or so, which is 6 or 7 attacks with the Muramasa in order to make up that difference. So that's a shame, but it's gonna be a pretty solid fight. He's got to be just about done fending off the green orbs, finishing with about a 38-24. That's about 2.5 minutes back, and it's gonna drop him further behind here. He's not out of it. There's 5 games left. A lot can happen, but he's definitely not in the greatest of positions going into game 2 or day 2 rather.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to come back, but I don't know. I'm very pleased actually with Melwest's performances. He's a perfectionist, so he's going to be very disappointed. But from a viewer point of view, it was like a super nice set of races we saw today. Especially like between Bottomane and Melwest. They're very, very close to each other all the time. And yeah, we'll just see how well it goes tomorrow. But the lead of the Voltifa just keeps getting bigger, and the point Skunkov has to make up tomorrow is all about the same, 50 points behind Melwest, behind third place, and Melwest and Bottomane are so close to each other.
Yeah, this pattern that kind of emerged as of Metal Slug seems to have pretty much held through Trials and Castlevania, with Devil Tifa X points ahead, Skunkov X points behind, and Brothermane and Melwest just basically tied in the middle, which is really what matters here. It is top two that go on to play in grand finals. So this gap, this 5-point gap between second and third, is really what matters. So this is pretty exciting that this has happened. Devil Tifa's very far ahead, but he's not so far ahead that if, you know, he's got it on lock. There's definitely 5 whole games left to play where a lot can happen. And that same principle applies to Skunkov, who is 50 points back heading out of game 2. And this is going to be good. You know, even if Devil Tifa pulls further ahead and Skunkov falls farther behind, I feel like Brothermane and Melwest seem destined to give us a fantastic duel here in day number 2.
Yeah, that's going to be for sure very interesting, because I want to see all those 4 runners get on top 2, but yeah, if you understand how that works, that's not sadly possible. So only 2 players will qualify directly. The other 2 will have still like 2 sets of tournament, one in August and one in September, with the exact same rules. So they will still have like a good chance to get there, because if they got in the finals in July, it's even more training, more practice left for them. Sadly, it's also more practice and more grinding for all the other UD runners. So the competition is picking up, I feel. We still have a lot of runners we've never seen that are practicing and grinding offline. So I'm excited to see some new runners in August, and to see the best 2 runners not being there anymore, because that's going to leave some room for the other runners, which is, you know, always nice. We love to see some very, very talented runners, but I also love and I'm excited to see new blood and to see new runners, new routes, new personalities emerge, because obviously, even if Brothermane and Melwest are so close to each other, I feel that on some games I could like tell which one is which one just based on how they run certain games. And even though like Melwest surprised me really on Aria of Sorrow, I feel like they've held with the better runner. Well, Melwest is still very, very good, but just Brothermane is a tiny, and Ultima are a tiny bit ahead PB wise, but they held up very well, and I was scared because they did not do so well on the previous 2 weeks, and I never know how the runners react. Some runners have troubles with actually like feeling they did poorly or worse than what they could have done, and clearly all those runners just don't care. They do the best that they can all the time, and clearly those were some very, very nice races.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good qualities about Devil Tifa, but one that you've pointed out to me, and I can absolutely see it, was the ability to play from behind. A lot of players, maybe not a lot, but you know, some players can start to fall apart, can crack in that situation, and Devil Tifa seems to thrive. And there was a lot of, there were still some question marks about what kind of player Melwest is. He certainly competed in grand finals for Ultimate Decathlon in Season 5, but that was about it. There wasn't a lot of race participation from Melwest. Certainly tons of time put into grinding on the leaderboards, but it kind of remained to be seen how consistently Melwest could perform in races, and what that kind of thing. So some of those question marks starting to be filled in this tournament, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. There was some especially with a story about my uncle last weekend. It was you could see some kind of fraying at the ends a little bit, but came back today super solid, super strong. A couple of games, like you said, perfectionist, so not going to be happy with some of the runs, but is still performing very well, very solid. Brother Main, I think, has got to be feeling pretty good about the end is nigh. Fantastic start to the day. That was a great run, and has been hanging with the two best in pretty much every other game. Devil Tifa, putting some distance between them, but he's right there with them in all these other games. And I mean, I guess he's third on the leaderboard for a reason. There is a gap. Devil Tifa and Mel West have emerged as the grind kings supreme. With what is this point gap now? It's about 100. I guess it's not that much. I thought it was more than 100. But Brother Main has been putting in work here, so maybe I take it back. Maybe I take Brother Main is a worthy adversary for sure with these two, and he's proving it.
So, quick final question as we see the leaderboard, the standings after day one here. We have 975 for Devil Tifa in first place. How close will they get to the 2K mark by the end of tomorrow, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. There's Shovel Knight and DK, which are both very hard to get even close to 200 points. But there's also Spectra Ball, which can be a free 200, and on a good run can be a 200 plus. So that can help close that gap. It's gonna be certainly tough to do it, as obviously it is. But I think 1900 is probably more the reasonable expectation here, especially with the way Spectra Ball went last weekend. That was not the 200 point plus blowout for everyone on the leaderboard the way that we thought it was going to be.
That's interesting. I'm asking that because Devil Tifa got a 7 points PB on trials, like what's crazy. They got a fairly good Castlevania Eye of Sorrow, a good The End is Nigh, good times overall everywhere, and they're not too far behind their PB, to be honest, on all those games, and their PB is at 2019 plus the 7 points they got on trials. That's 2026. So if they get a very, very good Spectra Ball tomorrow, they could make it, which would be crazy. We'll see. I'm going to expect, obviously, like you, a 1900, maybe a 1950. But if Spectra Ball goes perfectly, they could get close to 2K, and maybe the second one would be closer to 1900 and just Devil Tifa stomping the races. Or tomorrow could be the same story as today, with very, very close race overall. Devil Tifa did not get first place everywhere, and far from that, actually. With it's just the middle slug, I feel, that got them so high up there.
I'm getting flashbacks. We used to do a show. Speed Gaming grew out of a show that I did with Feasel. And we would have 4 players on, and then they would compete in the game. And, they would, throughout the week, they would have posted some time so you get an idea of where they're at. And so if it was about a 3-4 minute goal or something, Feasel would be like, well, I'm expecting sub 2 today. and that was the bit where I'm like, oh, come on, cut them some slack. And I feel like you're doing this to me now. You're coming out here expecting 2K in a race across 10 games. I think you're being a little unfair to these players. Yeah, certainly I want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah,
but come on now.
I did not say they had to do it. I was wondering if that was possible. That's not the same thing. I would be super happy for the runners as long as they are happy with their performances. I don't care about the result in the end, to be honest. I just want to see so good races that we've seen today. Trials and the story about my uncle I will remember that race, like I'm sure. Like the Trials race was so close, and the ending with Skankov barely making it, like 5 seconds ahead of Devil Tifa, just in the final checkpoint. A story about my uncle got like Skankov in first place, but he had to work for that, and the 3 other runners at 190, 189, and 188, like super close races. I would trade a 2K for close races all day long, but you know, it's, you know, just wondering if it's possible. I don't want to be unfair to those runners. They've put out a lot of work, and I'm not asking them anything, like just have fun pretty much. But you know, I have to think about it.
You have to at least throw it out there, plant the seed. I get it. I can't wait to see. You know, if that seed blossoms into a 2,000 point tall tree. I don't know, the metaphor is getting away from me a little bit, but I want to see what happens. Whether it's amazing, whether it's a meltdown. I know what I want to see, but whatever it is, I want to see it.
So tomorrow we'll have DKC, tough game, very hard, almost impossible to get close to world record. That game is one of the most run SNES game ever. It's super tough, it has some tricks, we are running all levels, it is a long category with a lot of glitches, a lot of setups everywhere, very cool speedrun. Inertia, second, that's one of the game that had close to no community active when the UD started, and the world record just got smashed by the UD community, so it's an interesting speedrun. It's one of my best watch of the UD6, to be honest. I don't know why, but I really enjoy like the flow of that speedrun. Then we have Cuphead in Simple, probably... Well, one of the games that decided the most on last week, actually. A lot of runners died on that game. It was very tough to watch. I hope the runners did the rest, so maybe the game that's the most scary to me as a viewer, because I don't want to see the runners having any issue whatsoever, so it's going to be interesting. And same story with Spectrable. Spectrable never went smoothly for anyone during races, so we'll see. And we'll end the day with Shovel Knight, and Shovel Knight is a weird one because Devil Tifa and Mel West are clearly way better at Shovel Knight than Brotherman and Skunkov. Brotherman learned the game very recently, only finished 2 runs, but got a PB of 55 minutes, so the runner is crazy good, and Skunkov did not finish the game 2 weeks ago during the race, so it's going to be an interesting day for sure.
Yeah, Skunkov has been practicing the games where he's weak, trying to, you know, the 100-point mark is critical for competing. If, you know, some bad things happen to your opponents and you play really well in the other games, I could see you just barely getting by as long as you've got at least 100. If you post a 0 in a game, I really don't see at this level of competition that being a mistake you can come back from. So he said to himself, I'm sure, that, you know, I cannot take a 0 in Shovel Knight or in Metal Slug, and so he put in the time, and so he's got his Metal Slug time up, and we saw him today finish, just barely, but he finished, and so he's got a day to to do the same with Shovel Knight. It's coming up tomorrow, and I don't know if he's gonna get there. It is a game where, you know, if you just play well, that sounds really dumb now that I say it out loud, but if you don't die, just don't die, and you can make it happen. So it can absolutely happen. And it would be so great to see all the cells filled in on that leaderboard, see Skunkov right there with the others, if not on top of some of them on the leaderboard. It would be great. I also hope that Shovel Knight goes well for just all the players in general. You know, we saw a lot of games be shaky for some players last weekend, and we didn't see Shovel Knight last weekend. But Shovel Knight has historically been the hardest, shakiest game of the bunch, and I don't think that's going to change. I think even for Double Teeth and Mel West, who are the strongest by a fair bit. It could be something that could get them. And I don't want to see anyone get got by Shovel Knight. I want to see them conquer it. So that's my big watch, I think. But like you said, with the performances in some of these other games from these other weekends, so many of these next 5 games are going to be important in one way or another. So I am super excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow we are doing the 5 other games for that decathlon. The top 2 will qualify for the grand finals directly. The other 2 runners will have 2 more chances to compete during August and September, and will have a last chance tournament if they did not make it before that. But that's going to be very exciting. We'll see you tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. EDT on that channel. That's 5 p.m. In CST in West Europe, and yeah, have a good day. Speed gaming is filled with on every channel with speedrun and tournaments. So be sure to check out the schedule if you want to see anything. What's your favorite watch on speed gaming recently, Mythical?
There's this thing we do. It's an English language broadcast of a French-based tournament called Ultime Decathlon.
That's a good
and
answer.
I think it's some of the best stuff we have on the channel. I'm a fan of the A Link to the Past randomizer for obvious reasons, but I really like that we got some Super Mario Brothers 3 going, and that's a game that's close to my heart, and it's something that's going to be coming up soon-ish. We finished up pretty early here. There's about a 40-minute gap.
They're too fast.
But yeah, they were really fast. So in 40 minutes on this channel, twitch.tv/speedgaming, Super Mario Brothers 3 Warpless tournament match will be starting. So look forward for that. Look forward to Celeste and Oracle of Seasons and Nier Automata and Mega Man X and Link's Awakening DX and a bit race for Super Mario Brothers 3. Tons of stuff happening on Speed Gaming all weekend, and I probably shouldn't promote something else, but ESA is wrapping up with the Big Ten finale that may or may not be over yet either, but that's a really cool thing. So also look forward to that.
Okay. So we'll see you tomorrow or on the Speed Gaming chats all over Twitch. Have a good day, Mythical, and don't be too excited for Skunk Off or Devil Tifa. They still have 5 games to play. Bye bye.
Bye.